NewGenGamers.com.
That let you have the arcade experience at home, because your vision is our vision. ColecoVision.
Welcome everyone to another Console Wars of the Past documentary here. Today we're taking a look at the ColecoVision. Ta-da! This is definitely an underappreciated console. The ColecoVision was an awesome system for its day. Now here, this is the cartridge port. There's a nice little look down in there. Okay. And this is our... what does that do?
Turn it on.
Oh, that's the on switch. Oh, duh, I was looking at the on and off button. There's the reset, which is on a console. And here are the controllers, because we have them placed in here.
Not a bad design.
No, that's actually a pretty decent design. You got the two fire buttons on the side there. You've got the stick there on the top.
With lots of range of motion.
Yeah, it's got a really good range of motion, unlike how the Intellivisions are, where you kind of just press in that direction.
Use it how you want. Thumb, hand. Got a little couple different options there. It spins.
Spins, I don't know if that has anything to do with gameplay, but you also have the numeric keyboard, which was kind of standard for the time.
It has a nice membrane on the buttons.
Actually feels like you're pressing them.
Push them down nice.
And we have overlays as well, which I don't know how that one works.
How does that work?
I don't know. No, it definitely goes under. I don't know. Well, we haven't messed with the overlays.
We have an overlay, but we don't know where the hell it's supposed to go.
So,
here's your overlay, which were popular at the time.
Yeah, overlays were a big thing then.
Now, we have the plug-in for the controller.
Yeah, you also notice everything's kind of ingrained in this.
It's a nice design on the entire system.
Now see, the it also has unattachable, like attachable controllers instead of the Intellivision's hardwired.
And not only that, we have along with it the official arcade roller ball. And this is a nice item. Look how nice the range of motion is on the roller here. Very nice.
You plug your controllers into here, so you have some place to put them.
And this is, again, a nice design with this. You've got pass-throughs. So the power for the roller ball passes through the regular AC power, no extra plug-ins. It all goes into one deal. And then with the controllers, they'll also plug right into the system.
Right into here.
After you plug both of these into the system, and then you plug your controllers right into the roller ball, so you don't have to pick or choose what you have. You can have
it's all attached to one unit.
Yeah, really nice design overall with everything they did with this system.
So you could actually attach this and not unattach it ever again, because you could just take your controllers from here, and it has a switch, which you use joystick or roller.
Yeah, great design on all this stuff. They really had a
nice fire buttons on this too. Nice solid ones, kind of like arcade fighter sticks.
And of course, we've got some suction pads on the bottom to keep it in place. Though they need clean, they're not quite sticky enough.
So you have your arcade action. That was the main idea with this console, was bringing the arcade action home.
Yeah, and they definitely did that. Now you have your expansion module on the front to allow it to become a full Atom computer. So the expansion module actually had use, unlike a lot of these systems where the stuff was just there. You could turn this into a full Coleco Atom computer.
Now that also played in when they released the adapter to play 2600 games.
Okay.
Now here's our power cord. That's where the power supply plugs in. And there's our video cable, which, as you see, is not hardwired. Channel select.
That's it.
So that's a pretty decent design on that. Let's take a look at some of our cartridges here. As you see, not unlike Atari cartridges. Nice sides. There you have a place where you could slide in your
Now here's an actual
overlays.
overlay we can...
Oh yeah, there's a
show
decent
you.
overlay.
Not sure what that other one was all about.
Well, that one just looked odd.
So,
But yeah, you see the point there. You just push it
you
down.
gotta fight with it for 10 minutes, but you get them in there.
Well, he's fixing the overlay. We're going to take a look at the power brick here. This is a power brick. You can injure somebody with this power brick.
I think I might.
I think that might be the biggest one I've seen.
For this era, the title definitely goes to Coleco.
Yes. Outside of the Xbox 360 one. Ah, there we go. I see you have your color-coded ones, your dog button. Very nice overlay. Very colorful as well. Colorful overlays help. And now we also have Pit Stop, an Epix game. Root Beer Tapper.
Now that's a Midway game. As we'll look at here, a lot of these are big arcade names and big arcade hits, and that's mostly what was on the system. Not a lot of original software, but they brought some great arcade stuff home.
Speaking of which, Donkey Kong Jr.
They
officially licensed by Nintendo.
They have got the officially licensed Nintendo games for a song, and we'll get into that.
Squish 'em Sam. We got Pitfall 2, the lesser-known sequel to Pitfall. We have the strangest cartridge I think I've ever laid my eyes on. We have Artillery Duel and Chuck Norris Super Kicks.
Yes, and
Chuck Norris game.
And there was a series of different double-ended cartridges. You just cram it in, whichever one you want to play. You want to play a little Chuck Norris? Bam!
Chuck Norris Super Kicks.
You are Chuck
right there.
Norris, and the game's not nearly as cool as Chuck Norris looks on the packaging there.
But hey. Here we've got Sub Rock, which is a great Sega game.
From Sega.
Mr. Do, another classic arcade title. See a lot of good arcade ports on this. You have Popeye, which is a Nintendo title. You've got Donkey Kong, which is another Nintendo title.
And we have the top labels here for this system.
Oh yes, top labels. That's essential. Frontline. This is a Taito game.
Another big arcade name.
We have Buck Rogers. Bump and Jump.
Bump and Jump from Data East.
We've got Victory from Exidy. We've got Venture from Exidy. Exidy really supported this system well. Slither. And we've got Looping from Ventureline. Now that is a look at some of the titles. Here we have some random manuals here. We got quite a few manuals
and promotional items. Now the manuals came in the blue, black, and light blue and white coloring. Not a whole lot of color, but not bad.
We got some Donkey Kong action going on here.
Ooh, he's in love with her.
Here's the dual one.
For your double-ended cartridge. Not a whole lot there. Now here's kind of a different one from Activision by David Crane, who made the original Cliffhanger. Or Pitfall.
Root Beer Tapper one. It looks like a menu.
Yeah, so this one's kind of interesting.
Kind of like that.
I like that guy.
This is awesome. I really like what they put into that one. We have a warranty card. Some color tuning.
Here's how to get your colors correct. Put this up beside your TV and match the colors.
Pit Stop. Popeye.
Now this one was published by Parker Brothers, but it was made by Nintendo. Parker Brothers, we wouldn't see in the video game industry too much after this. Victory.
Venture, which is another classic. Slither. Frontline. Looping. Got Chuck Norris Super Kicks.
There's the Chuck.
As you can see, you adventure through the game here.
It's a terrible game.
Yeah. It's really not that good.
Chuck Norris is the
The
only
roller
cool thing
controller.
about it. Yes, here's the official manual for the roller controller.
Shows you all the ways to use it. And in French. And backwards. And we've got the Coleco instruction manual for the roller controller. Supplement instructions.
How many do we need?
Arcade quality game system.
Now
The official owner's manual of the ColecoVision.
Yes, here's the actual system manual.
Very nice. And all this stuff's in excellent condition. And I'm liking it. Got some more warranty cards.
I am going to send that in.
I don't think you're going to get anything nowadays.
Well, I will at least know that
What
it's covered in case of
What is
warranty.
the colorful thing there underneath you? Looks like a poster.
No,
Squish 'em
it's
down.
Now, this is kind of clever. It is a poster, but it is also the instruction manual.
Oh, neat. It said something about the talkies?
Ah, yes, this is a game that talks.
Oh, voice work.
With digitized voices, and it sounds really crappy, and you'll hear it once we play the game. But it was there. A lot of potential for this system, a lot of power. This hardware was later used in the Sega SG-1000 system, which wasn't released in America, but it has the exact same hardware. So Sega put it to use again.
It's a very quality system, and you're going to enjoy this one, so we're going to go play some of these wonderful games for it. Welcome everybody to another New Gen Gamers Console Wars of the Past. Today we are taking a look at the ColecoVision.
And we're shooting some purple eggs.
Now, they do
Or
look
wait,
like purple eggs, don't
I mean
they?
UFOs.
They're shooting pineapples at us.
Oh, they are. And Z's.
Oh, well, you gotta get your Nighthall.
So we're back once again. This is Ron.
This is Ray, and I crashed.
And we have along with us video game expert Duck Wensel, who's actually never played this system, so
This is gonna be a treat for him.
Of course, some of these games we've all played on different platforms. We're going to be playing a lot of arcade ports, and that was one of the strengths of this system as we get into the lore of it more.
Check out this warp zone.
And now we've entered into a new area. This is Buck Rogers.
A game from Sega.
By Sega, based on the old sci-fi series, which is ancient sci-fi. And this is from Sega.
I think this is Sega, yeah.
Yeah, this is a Sega game, and we start to see the Japanese developers flex their muscles on this system.
And look at the graphics on this comparatively. I mean, you have some really cool looking UFOs that, you know, admittedly they look like eggs, but...
Well, by comparatively, you mean by 1982 standards.
Yeah, compared to the other systems of that era.
And we seem to be having a few graphical glitches here with the cartridge. We have a couple things, a couple blocks on the screen that shouldn't be there, but other than that, good power and good graphics for the system when it came along. And as you can see here, you move all around the screen shooting.
Got some really good free motion.
Can you go up and down as well?
Yeah, I was at my full height there, but...
So you have a full XY axis. I mean, this is essentially giving the illusion of moving in 3D rather than a lot of top-down shooters and things that we'd
Wasn't sure if that was
see.
a glitch or a wall.
That would be a glitchy wall.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's very reminiscent of the Death Star, as we mentioned here. George Lucas, I wonder where you got the idea, buddy.
Oh, this was after Star Wars.
Not Buck Rogers. I don't know if they ever actually did this in the series, but...
Oh yeah, they did?
Actually, as a side note, a lot of the Star Wars was based on a lot of Greek mythology and such, but did take a lot of inspiration from Buck Rogers.
Thank you, video game expert Duck
That's
Wensel.
right, and
He also goes by Ducky.
Yes, that's right. And also check out Lucas's first feature-length film that was released to THX.
1138.
Yeah, and at the beginning of that, at least the special edition version, they show a small scene from Buck Rogers.
Oh,
So
there you go.
but
There's
definitely.
a little extra thing. And I don't know if this is going to turn up on the video, but we keep having black and white fade in and out, and it's, I think, due to our lead cable going into the Coleco here. So
If it goes black and white, just bear with us here.
Just pretend that it's color.
Of course, then again, it could be like the Intellivision and not just show up
And
at all.
what was the tagline on that? Planet of Zoom?
Planet of Zoom.
Planet of Zoom.
Apparently, they like to drive Hyundais.
All right. So that's what those saucer UFO egg things are. Look out for the pineapple. Now, this is the Coleco, based off of the Connecticut Leather Company, and we'll get more into that. The system came out in 1982 to compete with the Atari 2600, the Intellivision, and what year?
Mess of other systems out there at this time.
Yeah, the 5200, the RCA Studio 2. There was a lot of stuff out by this point. This was one of the last of what we're going to call the first console generation. After the Pong era, when games started having interchangeable cartridges, this was kind of the pinnacle of that before the 8-bit era came along. So we're going to see that this really brought home the arcade and really flexed its prowess graphically. And this is another one that was an arcade port by Sega, who was renowned for their arcade games at the time, and brought it home.
An excellent translation. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on the screen here.
Yeah, a lot of different sprites, a scrolling background, the 2 layers of a scrolling background, and you know, your full range of motion is really nice. And we'll talk about the controller for this system, which isn't too badly done. It might give you some carpal. Yeah, you might get carpal tunnel after a while, but for short play periods, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, we got some. It's kind of comfortable if you hold it right. Like if you try to hold it one hand and go kind of left or right with it, it doesn't quite work.
You want to grip it, not lay your hand over top of it.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work that way.
So
we're gonna move on to our next game here.
So let's carry on with the ColecoVision, and we'll get into the lore.
Activision presents David Crane's Pitfall 2: Lost Caverns, starring Pitfall Harry.
And adapted by Robert Rudakowski.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with our console wars of the past with our Coleco, and we're checking out Pitfall 2 for the Coleco, as you can see.
A great third-party game.
Absolutely, and definitely, I've never seen Pitfall 2 look like this, so this is interesting and fun for me, but
go forward.
Yeah, so we have Ray playing this right now, so we'll see where he goes with this great adventure. And evidently, unlike the Intellivision, we did the console wars of the past for that, we noticed in Pitfall 1 you could go backwards. That's the first time us New Gen gamers knew that and got quite a kick out of that, so check out that video if you get a chance. But we're going to get started with getting into the lore of the Coleco and a little bit about the history of the company. In 1932, Morris Greenberg, he started the company as the Connecticut Leather Company. And they were known for their shoes. Later on in the 50s, they got into making leather craft kits, and also in the 60s, making plastic kiddie pools. You know, like when you were a kid, you would go over to your cousin's house, your friend's house, and you had those little pools and such, and you get in and wade about and think it was the best thing in the world. Well, your parents drank beer and probably gossiped, but you know, whatever. That's cool. You didn't know, you were a kid, you were in a pool with 2 feet worth of water, you thought it was the best thing in the world. So, what we see is eventually they get away from being a leather company and they move into the area of video games. This came about because of Arnold Greenberg, who I believe was the son of Maurice or Morris or whatever you call him, right, Ray?
Yeah, Maurice.
Okay. This is around the time that Pong became very, Pong became what Pong became, which is the first really home video game system console idea. Of course, Coleco decided to jump on board with this. They saw it was selling so well, as many other companies did at the time, and they released a Telestar in 1976. Now, they released this Telestar system, and they ended up releasing 14 in this series of games. It's kind of like the plug-and-plays that we see nowadays. You know, it was a single game that connected into the TV, but it was bulky, just as many other ones was. Well, the Telestar was one of the first to jump on the Atari Pong craze and create almost a clone. And in the Telestar series, like I said, there were 14 games, but most of these were just a retooling of their first version, the Pong version, whatever it be, with color or a different, finish on the console itself. Like we tend to see a lot of wood finishing from the late 70s to in the early 80s.
Yeah, that was the trend at the time.
For whatever
I guess.
reason, like I've said before, to fit in with your log cabin, or to hide it if you were ashamed of it. I'm not sure what their reasoning behind it was, but we tend to see this a lot. And if you ever get a chance to look at the pictures or even check out our openings, you'll notice that some of the consoles have this awkward wood finishing. For, like I said, whatever reason, I have no
for
idea.
video game tech,
Somebody
you don't expect wood finishing.
Yeah, somebody really needs to help us out with that one. We don't understand that. But whatever, I guess it's the same idea now. Our consoles nowadays, with their sleek white finish to fit in with the iPod generation. So it is what it is. But because, eventually there was such a glut of these Pong clones, it almost led to Coleco's bankruptcy in the 80s. But they went past these Telestars, and they eventually got into a handheld market, much like Mattel was doing. Small games that people could take on the go, and they did a lot of head-to-head sports titles, such as their football, baseball, basketball, soccer, and hockey. You can't go wrong with sports. People love them, and they need them, and play them on the go. And it's been 20-something years, and people still love their sports games, and that'll never go out of style. So what we end up seeing is them working through with the sports titles, and then eventually they moved to a mini arcade line, which would become Coleco's forte. As we run through this series, you'll notice that a lot of what Coleco is known for is its arcade ports that at times were better than the actual arcade games at the time. But they started doing a mini arcade line, and as I said, with games such as Donkey Kong and Miss Pac-Man.
Along those lines, too, there really weren't a whole lot of original titles on the system, and Coleco, after this point, wasn't really involved in the game design as much. They were really more focused on bringing other companies' games to their system.
Which is a smart move, The arcade at the time was what the arcade was. It was booming. People loved it, and people wanted to bring it home. And the Coleco was the best system to bring the arcade experience to the living room for.
Up to that point, and they did it successfully, and they did something that the other companies hadn't focused on, which was bringing home the Japanese game developers. Atari did pretty good by having Namco games and Taito games, and with the Coleco, we started seeing Sega, Nintendo, and Konami, who nowadays are renowned in the industry, coming home. So those were crucial companies for them to acquire, as well as other ones such as Parker Brothers, who was doing a lot at the time. They had Universal. Here you see an Activision game. So they did a really good job of pulling in third parties to make up for a lack of first-party support after some of their earlier ventures.
And like you said, the only disadvantage to this is there are not a lot of original titles. This is a lot of what they started out doing, porting home or cloning things in a sense. So it's kind of a shame, but at the same time, we get what people at the time wanted. They wanted to bring the arcade home in the best possible way, and as I said, with ports that are sometimes better than the actual arcade games. And I also want to mention, when they're doing when I was talking about did the handheld line, they also eventually started doing educational handhelds before they came to doing the full-fledged ColecoVision, which was the last of the big three of the first console war.
Yeah, which we can also include the Atari 5200 in that, and some other less popular systems, but this one really blew up, and had the video game crash not come along, Coleco potentially would have taken over the industry, and they really got shafted by what happened to the other companies.
And and smartly, I mean, it wasn't smartly because I don't even know if that's a word.
I don't think it is, but that's fine.
Hey, we'll throw it in there. They were really the first to get out of it too. Of course, they became bankrupt, and we'll get into that because of the Atom home computer system, or it's called something along those lines. I'll get the exact.
Yeah, it's the Atom.
Yeah, the Atom. But they got out almost as quickly as they got in. It was about a 4-year period that they were there, maybe even less. So we'll get into that as we go along. I think that
they did what all the other game companies did at that time and tried to push a video game system and a computer system, and we haven't really seen anyone do that successfully. They're really two different markets, and nobody's been successful at that. ever.
Ever. Yeah, even till today. You know, we're finally seeing a generation of consoles that are on the fringe at least. You know, we're really breaking that barrier down. But still,
maybe Sony. Sony's probably the only one who's been able to successfully sell both. But you know, with the computer systems today, it's not like it was back then, where every system had their own standards, their own languages. You know, the stuff Sony makes are PC compatible, IBM compatible, which are the set standards. At this time, the computer industry and the video game industry was the Wild West, so everybody was doing completely different hardware, different components, and everything. So a lot, you know, they bursted onto the scene very quickly, and then were gone just as quickly.
Yep. Before you move on, I just want to mention, notice how much the Coleco is doing here. You know, compared to the Intellivision, the Atari, you know...
Ray is getting frustrated.
Yeah, Ray's getting upset.
And it will do that.
But the Atari, you know, we have... I'm just going to say this straight out. You know, single screen, not much going on. Some games, I won't say anything, E.T., maybe had multiple screens, but really didn't see much. The Intellivision did quite a bit better in comparison, but this is almost close to you know, the NES quality of video gaming. Not quite there, maybe half a step back, but it's doing a lot and it's pushing a lot. And these games, as we go along, you'll see that they're fun to control. They've got a lot going on screen, a lot of animation, and you know, it wasn't the Atari where you had to sit there and make up your own adventure. You know, imagine what was going on. This is pretty cut and dry. We can tell where we are.
We can tell where we are. We can tell what things are, and we get small bits of storyline. We get some nice music, which I don't know if this one's picking up very well, but you know, we get nice tunes with all the games. So really brought a lot to the table as far as the power, and really, you know, as we said, the pinnacle of the first generation of video game systems to come along.
Absolutely. So let's move on to our next game.
Move on. Grab that
of glowing
cheese.
White chocolate.
Continuing on with Console Wars of the Past, here we see the ColecoVision BIOS screen, which was a lockout code that was programmed into the games and systems to make sure that unlicensed stuff didn't get on it. And it would last for 12 seconds, so we're going to cut most of that out of these videos. But each game, much like the Intellivision, would give you a little intro, what year the game was made, the title of it, who made it, etc. And here we're playing Root Beer Tapper, tapping that root beer. And you see Ray is playing the plucky bartender, I guess.
Who's minigame.
What is he doing? Shaking the beer up?
Bastard.
That's not cool. That's alcohol abuse. Ah, he got him. I guess this isn't alcohol, this is root beer.
Yeah, root beer.
And Ray says this was called Tapper in the arcades.
Yeah, I believe it was actually supported by Budweiser. You had like an actual Budweiser tap.
Sweet. Well, you didn't get that for the home version. You just got Root Beer Tapper. But this is a Midway game. Midway being huge in the arcade at that time, making some classic games such as Joust. And they put their support behind Coleco as well. We also will look at some games from Taito, who was another big Japanese company. So we'll see how they just lined up all these huge companies.
They picked up a lot of the arcade hits that the other companies were missing.
And I don't know if this Greenberg guy must have been a great businessman, because they really seem to do such a good job of pulling these companies in that the other companies either didn't focus on, didn't put the resources into, or whatever. But Coleco made some great deals here to pull some classics in. And for some reason, those same 3 dots on every game, same 3 pixels, keep screwing up. I don't know.
Maybe we need to check out the cartridge port or something.
Could be. It seems to be around the same place on each game, and that, I believe, will pick up on the video. We also are flashing with our black and white color in and out, but I don't think that's picking up on the video, so you folks at home won't get to enjoy that.
Cut that one kind of close.
Good job.
Yeah, we're having a couple video issues here, but nothing really too bad.
Considering it's a 20-plus-year-old system, a classic system, we pulled this thing out and just started playing it and didn't have any real problems. So that's a testament to this old hardware. I mean, when you have video game systems nowadays that you can't even get them to last a year before they break, and these things a lot of times are holding up 2 decades later, that's pretty good.
Yeah, we were looking at you there, Xbox 360.
And PS2, Generation 1.
Yeah.
We know your names. Not like that old Coleco, but we will get into some manufacturing problems later that they had that really hurt them, but not with the Coleco system itself. The system itself seems like pretty solid hardware.
Yeah, it does. And they definitely had some really really good support for this from the third parties.
These yokels are insatiable.
Yeah, really.
How much root beer do they need?
I don't know, but Jesus, they just keep pouring out of here. And the ones on the top are the worst, because they'll like throw you off the bar.
Now, is this a perspective issue, or is it actually you have a shorter bar at the top?
I think it's a perspective issue. Because it's just kind of that order.
That bandit.
That friggin' bandit with the buck teeth keeps shaking up your root beer, and that makes it flat. I don't know if he's aware of that or not.
I got the right one this one.
He got the right one. Look
I
how
got a
happy
penis.
he is. And you see how
Oh,
the man
mother.
looks like a real man. He's got eyes with pupils. He's got some lines on his pants, a little hat. Very defined,
Kinda
very
looks like
good
Mario,
graphics.
actually.
He does look a lot like Mario. You see the moose head on the wall there. Just little details here that really made this system show off the graphical prowess.
Yeah, it really looks a lot like 8-bit graphics. Like,
Nice
more powerful than it should be.
Nice animation. We see a little bit of flashing and screen flicker with the game, so it's
May just be the system, too.
yeah. Well, it's either
Like the
the
age.
system or just the the way it's loaded. But I mean,
Oops.
overall the animation's pretty top notch for the time.
Yeah, and Greenberg went out there and secured some of the best third-party support that he could get.
And some of the best games that we had never seen on home systems and weren't possible on the other systems.
Well, see, his whole thing was Atari had went out and got all the big popular games from the arcades, and he went and looked for the hidden gems. He sent his people out specifically to look for games that other people hadn't covered yet.
Such as the next title we'll look at being the selling point for a lot of people for this system. And as far as how well this system did, they sold 500,000 units in their first year, which Atari took a couple years to do that, and it sold 6 million by the time it was done in a very, very short amount of time. Fastest selling system ever up to that point. And as we'll get into, the crash just did it in. This thing hadn't pinnacled by any point. It was
no, it was ready to be the next generation successor.
Yeah, this was going to be the popular dominant system if the rest of the industry hadn't fallen apart around them. They were poised. They had the tools, they had the ability, they had the system, they had the agreements and deals. They had everything they needed to really dominate the industry.
They had both quality hardware and software. So neither of those were an issue.
So I'd say we should check out the next game here. This just kind of does the same thing over and over again, but a fun time. You can still get this game, I believe, on the Xbox Live Arcade.
Yes, on the Xbox Live Arcade, this has a really good version, and the Midway Arcade Treasures.
So if you
The
still
first one.
So if you still want to play it, it's still relevant and still fun. So that
Check
was
it out and
Root Beer Tapper. And if you watched our intro video for the Coleco, you saw the manual was actually a fold-out menu to look like an old-style menu, which was pretty neat. So some cool packaging that came with this one. So let's check out a game that defined the era.
Ah, this looks familiar. Well, what's the deal with it? It's backwards. What's going on? Alright, I guess this is a different kind of Donkey Kong. Look at that. Never saw that before. Alright, if you can't tell what this is by now, ladies and gentlemen, you haven't been paying attention. But this is the Nintendo Classic.
And you should go back and watch some more of our videos. We covered at least twice.
I'm sure that there's about 15 videos of Donkey Kong in various forms on New Gen Gamers, wherever you're checking out your videos at. But we're going to go do another one, and this is the Coleco version of Donkey Kong. This was actually the pack-in game, and I'm going to start to talk about the ColecoVision and the start of it. It was August of '82 when we saw the Coleco released. As I said before, it's the third in the big three. As Ron mentioned, we could add the 5200 in here, and also the 5200 is known for its arcade ports also. But with a lot of problems, issues with that system, mainly the controller. Great arcade ports, but once again, the controller kind of hinders that. But we're talking about the Coleco here. So as I said, it was August of '82, and you could pick up your brand spanking new Coleco for $199.99. Not a bad price point. As you can see going down, we got some excellent arcade quality graphics. You know, that was the big selling point, as I've mentioned before. The arcade ports was where it was at for this system. And a lot of these games, you know, people wanted to play these, and we had the third-party supporters. We're saying Coleco, the Greenberg really went after those those companies that had a lot of titles out there. He steered away from Namco and Taito. Is that how you say that? I believe so.
Taito. Well, they got Taito, but not like the big titles like Space Invaders. They went for more of their obscure stuff.
I see what you're saying. But we see at the launch of the Coleco 12 titles and an additional 10 by the end of the year.
This one's brutal.
Is it? Awesome, man. So, but by Christmas of '82, from August to Christmas, we see a 500,000 units sold. You know, and at the time, you know, the main competitor at this point was the Atari. You know, and one of the interesting things about the Coleco is it had a I want to say this Atari 2600 capabilities. You know, you could play your Atari 2600 games. That expands the library.
Well, they created an adapter for it.
Yes, and that's what I said eventually. And we will get to talking about that adapter. But that, you know, that when anytime that you can, and we saw this a lot in this first generation, the Atari being the big one to come along first. You know, everyone wanted to play the Atari games on their console. That just expands the library by so much. And we do see that this causes some problems. You know, Atari not wanting to be screwed out of their business, and the Coleco being a company that really does screw Atari out of a lot of business, and I'll get into that later on. It expands the library by so much, which is good. You know, you get more bang for your buck whenever you put it in. You put your money into this system, you're really getting a lot out of it.
Yeah, there was Coleco was really good at just hitting Atari where it hurt.
Absolutely.
As far as a fierce competitor, Coleco, I would rank as their number one.
Yeah, and you know, while we're talking about this, I'll actually just get into some of this information of how they went and screwed Atari. You know, one of the first things was they came out with expansion models for the Coleco.
Oh, their very first time they went for it was with the Telstar series. Atari was kind of cornering the home market with their home Pong, and Coleco started making different versions of. They started doing home Pong, and then it was like a home shooting gallery.
Yeah.
They basically did a Magnavox Odyssey type, but in all different packages. And then after that was the ColecoVision. Because Coleco nearly went bankrupt with the Telstar thing. They made too many of them, and it nearly pushed them into bankruptcy. Arnold Greenberg took a lot of risks that were kind of... I don't want to say unnecessary, because he really pushed things forward, but he took a lot of risks that most people wouldn't take.
Yeah, and when you were talking about the Telstar, one of the interesting things is, as I mentioned before, you know, they did a lot of different Pong versions of the Telstar, but eventually they did do a shooting version of it and also pinball versions of it. But like you said, they went almost bankrupt in the 80s, and as I said before, the handheld market, that's where they kept alive until they released this ColecoVision. It really blew up. So, you know, and we want to say, you know, this version of Donkey Kong, this was the official, Nintendo licensed the rights to Coleco to do the official home console versions of these games. And eventually Coleco did a version for the 2600 and the Intellivision of Donkey Kong. Down the line, though, we'll go into a story about how this kind of got screwed up, but I want to talk about that more when we get to the Atom system, or the Atom home computer. But we see...
Oh, side note on those ports that Coleco made, that was the one that you saw in our Atari 7800 one. That one was done by Coleco. If you'd like to go back and take a look at that Donkey Kong to see the difference.
Mm-hmm. So, but I just want to hit on these... Sorry, that's not what I want to say. Let's go... Well, I think we've had enough Donkey Kong. Do you want to move on to the next game, guys?
Sure.
Alright.
You are the player, and the arcade is the arena. You focus your mind and propel yourself into a universe where you're the master of your destiny for as long as you can keep the trip going. This is the arcade experience. We're ColecoVision. We bring the arcade experience home with games like Donkey Kong with multiple screens, arcade controls, and arcade graphics that let you have the arcade experience at home because your vision is our vision. ColecoVision.
It's Donkey Kong, the arcade sensation, and now you can play it at home.
Hang on, sweetheart! I'm gonna save ya!
Now you can play Donkey Kong on your ColecoVision, Atari VCS, or Intellivision video game system. Donkey Kong has multiple screens, just like the arcade game.
You're not gonna stop me, you stupid ape!
Play Donkey Kong on your ColecoVision, Atari VCS, or Intellivision video game system.
Don't worry, darling! I'll save you! Help me!
While Atari keeps trying to sell you new systems like the 5200, with ColecoVision you only need one system, because ColecoVision expands to give you a Super Action controller set with Super Action Baseball, a driving module with turbo, an expansion module to play all Atari 2600 games, and only ColecoVision plugs into the Atom module to become the complete Atom computer system. So if you don't want to keep buying new systems, there's only one system to buy, ColecoVision. Sorry, Atari.
Now you can bring the arcade experience home. Introducing ColecoVision, the most advanced video game system you can buy. It plays more games than any other system. Arcade games with multiple screens like Donkey Kong. Arcade games like Zaxxon with its three-dimensional look. Adventure with 15 different screens. Cosmic Avenger. And ColecoVision's new Smurf game. Coming soon. ColecoVision's first expansion module that lets you play all the Atari VCS compatible cartridges. Now you can bring the arcade experience home because your vision is our vision. ColecoVision.
Breakfast table, Donkey Kong brand cereal.
Porky Bear is a fun for breakfast. Donkey Kong cereal.
Sweet, crunchy corn taste will drive you ape.
You love the crunch. Donkey Kong cereal. Porky Bear is a fun for breakfast.
It's part of this complete breakfast.
Donkey Kong cereal. You love the crunch.
The Quiz Whiz!
Answer all my questions and you'll get an incredible prize. Start with this Quiz Whiz computer and this book of 1,001 questions. Then go on to other quiz books.
The book of lists.
Facts, figures.
Superheroes.
Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman.
And,
Robin.
Music, TV, people,
from Bantam Britannica Books.
Disasters. I've answered them all. Now what do I get?
The Smarts.
The Smarts.
Quiz Whiz, the more you play, the smarter you get.
Let's go looping.
Pick
You
your skill level,
You
right?
see at the beginning of most of these games, you pick your skill level, so you didn't have the switches like the Atari did for picking difficulty levels, but you could pick them mostly set on the cartridges. And you see
straight up that
Ray
works. Defy
flying
gravity.
up.
Defy gravity.
Take out that balloon.
I guess I call it looping for a freaking reason.
No doubt.
And there's the end off to the left.
If you can make it like that far, you win. That's what I've learned so far. Nicely done, Ray.
Okay, so as Ray commits suicide multiple times here, let's talk about this system itself.
Kamikaze looping, as it's known.
Yeah. This system pieced together a nice set of hardware. They put in some Texas Instruments pieces, a Z-Log processor. Texas Instruments provided the sound and video processors. They had 16 kilobytes of video RAM, 1 whole kilobyte of RAM, and the storage capacity was 8, 16, 24, and then 32 kilobyte games. So pretty big games for the time. By the end, once they would get up to 32 kilobyte games, even 16 kilobyte games were pretty big. That's where we'd start to see these multiple screens, timers keeping track of different things and different information. So Pilot 1's going to try this again.
Hey, what can you do?
I suck at this game.
What can you do? That's
What are you supposed to be doing exactly? Looping around them, or?
I don't know. I'm just... Up is down and down is up. It's got me all screwed up here.
So it plays like a shooter.
Basically. I always set those controls back the other way.
But this hardware really was a nice package, put together well, worked well, and would later be adopted by other companies. We'd see Sega come along and do their first console that they ever did, which they released only in Japan and Europe, so we never saw it in the US, and that was the SG-1000.
Gotta love it.
So the SG-1000 was the forerunner to the SG-3000, which would later be their, up to that point, most successful system, the Master System. So this hardware helped get Sega into the hardware business, who over the next decade would become a huge name. And it was used one other time, if you want to tell us about that, Duckle, as Ray explodes.
You want me to hit on the Dyna then?
Yeah, talk about the Dyna.
All right, yeah, let's talk a little bit about... This happened after the life cycle of the Coleco had been over.
Which again proves that it was ahead of the curve and by no means outdated when Coleco quit making
absolutely.
them.
The Coleco, it was discontinued in '84. This is during the crash. As I said, Coleco, they got out of it. We'll see a couple faults come along, but let's hit a little bit on the Dyna, and also we didn't get the Dyna here in America, but we did eventually get a version of it that was known as the Telegram's Personal Arcade. But I want to talk a bit about the Dyna and some of the interesting things it did. It was in '86, Bit Corporation had produced a Coleco clone, as I said, that was called the Dyna, D-I-N-A. I believe that's Dyna, right? So Dyna, whatever you want.
I would say Dyna.
Dyna, yeah. And as I said, it was compatible with Coleco and the Sega SG-1000 games. So and it had one cartridge slot for both cartridge types.
So they didn't get that hardware officially licensed or anything like that. They just took the same components and put together a system and put in the blocks, and I'm guessing they probably worked around the BIOS of the Coleco and stuff in order to get these games to run.
Well, what happened eventually with the problem that we're seeing with these load times is a lot of companies found a way around these. But anyhow, I'll get back to talking about the Dyna. Now, as I said, this was not released in the U.S. because we didn't have the SG-1000. So eventually we did get a form of this called the Telegram's Personal Arcade, and it's a lot of the publications that I've read from, they weren't sure if it played the SG-1000 games, so I can't state whether they did or not.
Yeah, considering they never came out in America, we're not really sure, so maybe some European out there happens to know.
Ken, I know you're listening, and we respect you and we love you. Let us know. You get a hold of one of those if you can.
Or if your name happens to be Ken.
Hey, we love all Kens. But one of the interesting things about the Dyna is the controllers, because they were modeled after Nintendo Entertainment System's D-pads. And with a small numeric pad, the Coleco, much like the Intellivision, has a numeric pad that it uses for some of the games, for different reasons. But on the Dyna, it was a small pad that was embedded into the remote. But the remote looks, or the controller, I guess I should say, looks exactly like a Nintendo controller does.
So Bit Corporation did their homework, at least. We'll definitely give them credit for that. They took the best of the era and packaged it into one system.
But there were some downfalls for this. If your Coleco game required 2 numeric pads to play it, you couldn't play that game on the Dyna. And the other things was the rollerball controller and the Super Action controller, which we'll get into. Any games that required those were also not compatible because this limited controller. But still, at the same time, you're getting double the bang for your buck. So that's not a bad deal.
If you lived somewhere where you could have cartridges for both, not. Of course, we take everything from the American side of gaming. Yeah. So I don't think Ray's going to have much more luck at this. So why don't we move on to the next game, because we can go into these expansion modules and the awesome roller controller, because we're going to break it out now and do some rolling.
Absolutely, and we'll continue to talk a little bit more about the Dyna and the Telegram's personal arcade that came out. Coleco presents Slither by Century 2, an '83 release. So I want to continue talking really quick about the Dyna and the Telegame's personal arcade. As I left off, I was talking about how it was not compatible with a couple of the titles that came out, and the reason why was, it didn't have the ability to use some of the peripherals that were needed for these games. And as we play this game, we'll talk a little bit about the peripheral that we're using right now. And in '88, Telegame's personal arcade came out. It was the US version of the Dyna 2-in-1, and it had the pack-in meteor shower with it. It was sold mainly by mail order, as we also saw with the Intellivision continuation. We saw mail order, and it was $40 for US dollars to get this. So that's not a bad deal. You can play your classic Coleco games on a little bit of a revamped system, basically doing the same thing. The only problem with the Telegame's personal arcade was it had a defect. The problem was that if the system was on too long, the motherboard would heat up, and that would cause all kinds of problems. It's like the classic. Those who remember, if Nintendo was on for too long, that power brick would heat up until you could fry egg on it. Well, imagine that happening to your actual system, and imagine the damage that would happen. That's one of the things that we see happen over and over again. But hardware's only meant to last so long. It's in the moment type thing. And as we mentioned, we're lucky to be playing these games on a 20-plus-year-old system and having almost perfect results. So, Ray, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're playing on, and I'll get a little bit more into the expansion models?
I am playing right now on the ColecoVision roller controller. This thing is awesome. It has really good mechanics. It picks up your movements extremely well. Everything's fluid. And it really does bring that arcade experience home. And that was the Coleco's main tagline.
What is with that dragon? Or what?
I don't know.
That's with wings? What?
That's a wicked-looking Godzilla thing.
So obviously, this game that we're playing right now, Slither, which was a pack-in that came with the rollerball. Obviously, it's a Centipede clone, but a lot more is going on here on the screen at the time, and it looks like it's quite fun, is it?
Oh yeah, this game's a blast. So many things coming at you.
Like I said, the Godzilla dragon, the pterodactyls. I don't know.
Snakes going everywhere.
We got snakes, we got prehistoric animals, we've got rocks, and we've got...
What's that, a donkey unicorn or something?
I don't know what that little thing we're shooting with is, but...
it's a Galaxian.
It's a that works for me. So let's talk a little bit about these expansion models now that we're actually using one. The first expansion model, known as Expansion Model 1, was Coleco basically made an Atari 2600, sorry. It made all those games compatible with your Coleco.
Yeah, the infamous expansion module that Coleco touted to basically get... Yeah, they wanted They're like, yeah, you can play their games and our games.
We're luring people in. We're gaining the love of the people. That's what we need. We want them to own this Coleco. Expand your library. Use all your 2600 games. Throw that Atari 2600 away. You've got the Coleco. You've got the expansion model. What else do you need?
Oh yeah, side note on that. This was the same time the Atari 5200 was out.
Yes.
Which couldn't play the Atari 2600 games.
Yeah, oh, what can you do with that, you know? Bad move, Atari, bad move. Slap him on the wrist.
So that was another thing that really kind of put Coleco up above what Atari was doing at the time. No!
So as we were talking about the expansion pack, though, the eventually Atari did sue over this ordeal, which I can't blame them, but, well, I believe it was... Coleco had to pay them royalties at that point. So, but we do see Coleco does go back and kind of screw over Atari pretty good in the long run. But I want to get more or less to the expansion pack 2, which was the driving controller, a steering wheel and gas pedals, and the packing game Turbo. And it was also compatible with a couple other games that eventually came out, you know. We've seen over the generations, a lot of times companies, usually third party will release different, you know, wheel peripherals, you know, and they basically just make, that's to put you into the illusion, put you into the driver's seat and really give you that experience. Also, the expansion pack 3. Now this, I'll get into more on another game, but the expansion pack 3 became Coleco's attempt to make a home computer, and really where they really fall, and we see, along with the
where everything just kind of falls apart for
That's
him.
right. The demise of the video game industry at that time.
The crash.
The crash. The infamous crash. We'll talk about that and how the Atom really destroyed Coleco in a lot of ways. But every company that did this was also destroyed by this endeavor of trying to make a home computer.
Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned enough about how good the control is on this game. I love
tight.
this roller controller. It just feels like I actually have an arcade board sitting in my lap.
And once again, this goes back to Coleco bringing home the arcade. You know, this is what people wanted, and this is what they really, you know, instead of going and spending your quarters at the arcade, you just sit at home and enjoy those same experiences. You know, I never got to experience that when I was a kid. You know, we had arcades, but I never got to experience that boom of the arcade era. But it's really fun to sit here and, you know, many years later and relive this in a small sense, on a small scale. So thank you, Rollerball, for being here, Roller Controller. And
oh yeah, and another plus is you can actually plug in your controllers into it and not have to unplug the module at all.
And it does give you a lot further that you can be away from the Coleco.
Yeah,
Ray's sitting comfortably on the couch here at New Gen Gamers headquarters playing this, you know, really enjoying himself. He's intently into this game, killing snakes.
Oh,
Which, you know, this desert's overrun by these little suckers. They need to be.
Oh, I love a good arcade game.
Are those snakes or tremors? Remember that movie
Tremors?
Those might be Tremors. They should have done that. Tremors and Godzillas. And
Maybe that's where they got the idea for this.
Why not?
Or that.
Get those high scores, Ray. But I think I've seen enough of this and I've talked enough, so I think we're going to move on to our next game.
Okay.
Now here we see a game without that long load screen. Epic's worked around it and basically removed that the code that would basically ensure that the game was made for the system.
Oh, look at that.
And now we have a little racing action here in Pit Stop. Decent looking cars.
It's a nice top-down view.
We've got the classic farting noise that was typical of racing games of this time.
So loud.
And another thing about these games, as you were talking about the Coleco Atom computer add-on, if you look at these cartridges, most of them will say for ColecoVision and Atom, which was a nice distinction for the Atom, because if you owned just the standalone computer, pretty much all your Coleco games would run on it. It was running the same hardware, and if you had the add-on Atom for the Coleco, it obviously really wouldn't matter. But this was different than the approach Atari took, which was recoding their arcade game or their computer games differently than the home games. So you couldn't. The 2600 cartridges were not compatible with the Atari 400 and 800 computers. You'd have to get them all over again.
And the same with the 5200 ones, because they were actually running on the same architecture. Those could have easily been ported over.
Yeah, so that was kind of silly on their part. Maybe they're planning to sell more games. He's taking a pit stop.
Oh, look at that. Fix your tires, fix your tires.
Now, this is pretty in-depth for the time, actually getting to go into the pits here and fix up your car. You see a lot of different timers going on the screen, keeping track of laps, time,
Get his butt
speed,
going over to the
fuel,
tires.
the time on your pit here.
Hurry, hurry, hurry.
A lot of information happening, and he's moonwalking.
Press one of the numbers.
So he's trying to get his tires changed here.
Give me a second to figure this shit out.
This is going to be the longest pit stop in the world, but that's okay. It's not the time that matters, it's that it's done. Oh, there he's got the tire. Got a fresh one. Get that fresh tire up there.
Get the fresh one. Go, go, go,
Come
go,
on,
go,
Jimbo.
go.
Go, Jimbo. All pit crew guys are named Jimbo.
Go, Jimbo.
At
Come
least
on,
in this
one.
game,
Go,
they're
go,
all
go. Jimbo and Jim Bob.
And Steve Bob.
Steve Bob. That's the flag guy.
Ah, okay.
Oh, use the fuel guy too. And give yourself some more fuel.
He's getting some fuel.
There you go.
He's loading up. And he's ready.
He's ready to go. Go,
Light
go,
him
go.
up. What is that he was doing?
He was saying, get it going.
So here we're back on the road again as the game ends.
Yep, that's the end.
Well, you held in there. So he's going to start up another race here. I don't think you'll need to pit on this one, but I don't think he meant to. But that's cool that we got to show that off, because that's something that definitely makes this game stand out compared to other ones at the time. You see the map on the screen there showing the whole course. So,
it's a very in-depth game for something of this age.
Yeah, definitely on the home consoles, a standout
And
product.
that's something you're really going to notice with this system is the in-depth gameplay.
It's no bump and jump.
The things that this system could do that the other systems couldn't stand out time and again. And as Duck yelled, it's no bump and jump, which we're going to see some bump and jump. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we'll have plenty of bump and jump in action.
And he's...
But pit
I
stop,
believe he's in first here.
Are you?
I'm not sure.
It looks
really,
like you're up there.
Doesn't seem like they give you your position.
That's the one thing that's missing here is what place are you?
Yeah. And for Formula 1 cars, they do a lot of bumping.
Yeah. Usually, like, anytime you hit a Formula 1 car, they just explode.
Yeah. But overall, a decent racing game.
Yeah.
The Coleco, just hands down, was superior to what else was on the market at the time in quality as far as what these titles looked like.
Now he's going to go for a speedier pit.
So he's getting those tires changed.
He's got it now. You shouldn't need fuel for that last lap.
And you see the tires change color to show you their condition, so you know which ones to change, which ones to need the most attention. If you want to go for a quick pit and only change 2 tires, you can.
And he's still in the race.
And he's back out on the track. That white car and that purple car continually just seem to pop up here. But
Yeah,
that's okay.
There's the green car.
There's green.
So apparently the IndyCar drivers were using pastels that year. Nice colorful tones.
It's peaceful.
It is peaceful. Nothing like going 100 miles an hour past some peaceful purple and green cars.
As you bump into them.
Oh, there's some blue sky. We have a winner!
Winner is you.
Woohoo!
And then
all right, folks.
that's the end.
That was a good look at Pit Stop. We're going to move on here to another Sega title. G.
Get ready, G.
All right, G. You are in a sub.
Here's another early Sega electronic
Are you sure those
game.
are bad? Yeah, those are bad guys.
Sega being a company that was famous for their parlor and
shoot the UFO!
arcade type games early on in the amusement industry, and then moved over to the electronic gaming world once that started to become a viable form of entertainment. And here's a classic, another Sega classic, and they were the first company to bring Sega home, which is crucial because Sega is such a solid software developer. There was such a pool of talent at Sega that was a great company for Coleco to get a hold of, and these games were not on the home market, so yet another score for Coleco.
Yeah.
And you see, this is some pretty intense sub-action, sub-rock. And Duck would like to point out that he does not like this controller.
Yeah, it's I was playing with it for a while here, and it feels you have to hold it just right or it hurts your hand.
Yeah, that's my feeling on it. Is I think it's a good controller, it's a good joystick, but in order to use it, you've got to hold your hand at kind of an awkward angle, and the whole controller is kind of a big box shape, big rectangle.
That's why
it's not really comfortable, and this is still in the days when they were trying these oblong weird joysticks, and we wouldn't see the end of that until Nintendo came along and brought the D-pad and
the mothership,
the two-handed controller that still dominates to this day.
Is that a boss?
That style. I believe that is a boss.
Nice, go
and
Duck.
He done exploded. We get some nice explosions here.
Not to be nitpicky, but what is the storyline here? I mean, I'm in a sub. Okay, I get that. That's cool. UFOs? What? What are they attacking by space and sea? Like, we will fight them on the land, on the sea, in the air.
We now on the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. What were they, like, trying to get back to their fish brethren? I mean, I get it, but I mean, why not? Still, at the same time, I'm trying to piece this one together, you know?
And the other
I have to choose
the other sea vehicles kind of look like race cars.
Yeah. Where's that mothership at, too? What was up with that?
But we won't judge it. It's the olden days.
You know, this was back when Hunt for Red October came out, and also Star Wars.
It wasn't like today where players demand a contingent story and things to look like things. You just used your imagination back then. These game developers just thought up a crazy idea and made it. And
back then, the story was just a reason to play a game, not the whole point of it. Like, I think in some of the later consoles, we've gotten away from that a little bit, where story is more central than gameplay in some cases.
But still, another great port brought home, and this controller, as we said, is a limited play controller. You cannot sit here for hours and hours without getting a hand cramp, which none of the early consoles you really could. The Atari 2600, for how blocky and outdated
was a boxy controller.
How outdated it would become. It was comfortable though. You could play for a long period of time because you just kind of had your hand clenched, whereas with the Intellivision and the ColecoVision, you kind of had to have your hand at a weird angle. And the Atari 5200 and 7800 also had a similar control setup. They were trying to evolve the controller, but just kind of went in the wrong direction at that time. Compared to what would come out later, they kind of missed the mark.
Yeah, it wouldn't really get right until about the NES controller felt right, and even that was a little boxy with the square sides.
But at least you could hold both hands around it comfortably and play for long periods of time. As gamers, we demand to play for hours on end, even though a lot of these games are your arcade games, which kind of repeat after the first couple minutes. But still, if you want to go for that high score, you're going to be playing for a while. And
The
It's-
Hubble!
The Hubble has flown past. Oh, he got bullseyed. Nice explosions.
Yeah, those
when
are
you
some
blow
pretty
up,
cool
though.
explosion effects there. Duck seems lost.
I'm trying to figure out if those are sharks or planes that have become sea-bound. I'm not sure what I'm shooting at there. Oh, game over. Snap.
I'm going to still stick with sea race cars.
That works for me. Oh, well, it's a quirky, and that's really fun, but as I said, I don't care much for the control. It kind of hurts my hand, but that's alright. You know, we were starting out of the gate, so...
You don't need a hand.
No. Chop it off and just make
Those
this
are
your hand.
overrated.
Alright, let's check out our next game, guys.
Let's check out our next game, guys.
Hi everyone, we're going to look at another familiar title, another arcade classic if you will, and another selling point of this system. What do you think this is, ladies and gentlemen? Well, what's the deal with Mario? That didn't look like Mario. That looks like the guy from that cartoon strip, Andy, what's his name?
Andy Dick?
Yeah, Andy Cap or whatever that is.
Andy Dick's a cartoon character,
It's not even
I think.
Mario. What's
No,
going on?
it looks like he's holding a boomerang or something, too.
And those are piranha plants or something. Those look more like the little alligators from Donkey Kong Country, but...
So one thing we'll notice with this system is the arcade ports maybe graphically aren't 100%, but gameplay-wise, they did a really good job coding these that they feel and play like the arcade originals.
This almost is like a super deformed version of Donkey Kong Jr. or something. It's a really cutesy and more... Well, that's different. But anyhow. Yeah, I missed the screener too, as Ray has just pointed out.
But this is the official version. Nintendo, up to this point, had not come to a home market. They'd released some of their own home console stuff over in Japan, but in America, the only thing they were known for were these arcade games.
These great arcade games. Title after title that was released. You know, Nintendo... After they hit Donkey Kong, they almost couldn't fail at that point. You know, anything that they touched was pretty much gold. And throughout the 80s and the early 90s, and even till today, I mean, Nintendo's had its rough points, but they're pretty much golden all the way. But I'm a Nintendo fanboy, so me and Ray are known as New Gen Gamers Nintendo fanboys, and Ray more so than me. But anyhow, as we were talking before in the game we played before about the controllers, I want to hit on something I forgot to mention. We did play Slither with the ruler controller, but also the Super Action controller that was released. It was kind of like punching gloves. It kind of looked like that.
Or kind of like a gun. I think it was kind of released as to kind of almost like looked like a toy. It was very different looking and definitely controlled differently than the traditional controller.
Yeah, and hopefully it did not hurt your hands the same way this does.
Yeah, unfortunately we don't have that one to try out.
Not as cool as the Power Glove, but I mean, I've seen pictures. It looks like it's pretty cool. You know, it's an interesting way to play and probably would get you more into that boxing motion, you know, that more the jabbing type stuff.
And it had its own overlays. We look at the systems of this era all having the overlays for the controllers, which showed you which buttons to press on these numeric keypads that they had, and what was it called? The controller?
Oh, the Super Action controller.
The Super Action controller had its own overlays that were different size.
Action.
So on our intro, we show off one of those, and we couldn't figure out what it went to, but it's for that Super Action controller. Super Action controller.
Super Action controller.
Not just regular action, Super Action.
Listen, you can't own the Super Action controller without being super, though. And that's maybe we're not super enough to have one. I don't know.
I guess we're only super enough for the roller controller.
I guess. Well, it's still pretty badass. But let's get back to the Nintendo, the licensing issues, and an interesting story that goes with that. But they had this agreement with Nintendo. Now, when the Coleco decides to release the Atom computer peripheral, the Model 3, they're showing it off. This is where it kind of gets into the interesting story. They're showing off the Atom home computer at CES, and they're demonstrating what it can do, and they're using their version of Donkey Kong for the Atom computer. Now, at this point, Nintendo is in the midst of a deal making with Atari because they want Atari to do all the promotion for the Famicom when it comes to America. They want them to take over from them.
The Famicom having been released in '83 in Japan.
That's right, and in '85 we eventually got it here.
But during this point, Nintendo didn't want to come to America themselves. They were looking for someone to distribute their hardware.
They really didn't think they could. That's one of the things that Atari had cracked the market here. That was the household name. We see these other systems, but when it comes down to it, Atari gets all the love. So Nintendo's trying to make this deal with Atari. Now, Atari at the time sees this Atom, the Coleco Atom, showing Donkey Kong, and they're in the midst of making this deal. Well, they get a little bit pissy, we'll say. So they go to Nintendo. That's a nice way of putting it, I guess. They go to Nintendo and they start to delay this deal. I'm not exactly sure what went on behind closed doors, but I'm sure there was a lot of cursing and swearing and what the hell is going on and blasphemy and such.
Especially with a language barrier between them. That can't make intense negotiations very easy.
I like to imagine it this way. They're saying the worst things possible and their translators are trying to dull it down. We won't go into details, but imagine that scene yourself and discuss.
Well, it also had a part to do with Kassar was also on his way out of the company, and he was one of the main brokers of the deal.
Yes, and what we see is after this showing, Atari being upset, it delays the deal long enough that he is out of the company by the time they would have made that go through, that Atari would have done all the promotion for Nintendo here in America and released it. So this really has no bearing on what eventually happens, but by postponing it, things did go down the way they went down. So that's a little bit of an interesting note on a little bit what happened. And what's the reason why our Nintendo made such a big deal of this too is Coleco owned the rights to make the games for the home consoles for their Donkey Kong games. Or all their games, I guess it would be.
Well, I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Arnold Greenberg was in Japan and saw Donkey Kong and realized nobody had brought it home. And he was on the phone instantly trying to make a deal because he saw the potential of this thing and nobody was savvy enough to be jumping on this. Atari, as we spoke about with Ray Kassar at that time, not being savvy enough to understand the game industry and what makes a game good and all of that. He was strictly a businessman, whereas Arnold Greenberg really had an eye for this stuff and said, we got to have this game. This is going to be huge. And bringing that home and putting it as a pack-in game helped move millions of those systems because this was the name at the arcade, along with Space Invaders and Pac-Man, which Coleco didn't get the rights to. This was the one that hadn't been scooped up, and they were so savvy in picking that up.
Yes, and as I mentioned before, they had the home console rights to that, but they did not own the computer rights. So this is why it was a big deal whenever they're showing this off on their Atom system. They don't have the right to do this at this point, and that's where it becomes a big divide over this whole thing. It becomes, those legal rights, they're huge, the fine print whenever it comes down to it.
Speaking of legal rights,
really take this seriously. Go ahead, Ray.
Speaking of legal rights, there was actually some problems with the game having a lot of legal rights problems. Apparently Universal thought that Donkey Kong, the original arcade version of Donkey Kong, was far too close to their character, King Kong. So they tried to sue both Coleco and Nintendo when they saw this, because they saw that Coleco got the home rights and was manufacturing the game to release with the ColecoVision. So this caused some problems for both Coleco and Nintendo. So Greenberg met with Universal, and Sid Sheinberg, who was running Universal, who was one of the main head honchos at Universal at the time, was being a real, pushing the issue. But turns out Nintendo unleashed Howard Lincoln, their brilliant lawyer, on them, And he went and found a court case that only happened a few years earlier when Universal actually tried to get the rights from the original creator of King Kong, RKO.
Ooh, fine print.
So what happened
Fine
was
details.
Universal proved in court that it was fair use because the copyright had expired.
Look at that. They screwed themselves out of it.
And Howard Lincoln found this and pointed it out to him and said, well, hey, look, it's not fair. You said it was fair use. So we're going to...
Well, a little bit more about that. Howard Lincoln won that court case for them, and Howard Lincoln would become a pivotal member of the Nintendo team and later president of Nintendo of America. And this is one of the early precedents that made him a household name. They needed a lawyer, or not a household name, a household name for us. But
here at Ninja Gamers headquarters. No doubt.
But I mean, a successful company needs a good lawyer, and especially for cases like that. You know, if he had not found that and let Universal have their way, we may have never seen this as successful as it was. But he found that little loophole and said, you yourselves said that this was a fair use item. And of course the name Donkey Kong was actually a big mistranslation to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they translated it, they thought, they looked up the word for ape, and they found, what was it, Kong, in their translation, and donkey came from the term jerk or ass. Stubborn. So stubborn ape became Donkey Kong, and they didn't realize that they had infringed on anything. They had no clue when they named this game. You know, they could have easily just named it Monkey Shines or something.
And then George Romero would have been pissed. But you know, what can you do?
None of it would have happened. So
and and I want to touch on something else really quick. You know, this Donkey Kong has made grown men cry, and if you don't believe that, check out the documentary or the film, whichever you prefer to call it, The King of Kong, about Steve Wiebe and Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell being of the classic arcade era fame. Their rivalry over the game Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr., which they don't touch on much, but Steve Wiebe did steal the high score from Billy Mitchell on Donkey Kong Jr. as we're playing.
Yeah, the two. Well, Billy Mitchell for years was the Donkey Kong world champion.
He is the gamer of the century, and we're not going to deny that.
And there's a reason, because Donkey Kong's regarded very highly because there's a lot of random events. It's hard to get through all the screens, and it's very challenging. So in the early arcade scene, it was considered a real testing ground, and that documentary fully breaks down, the history and the rivalry between these two guys to be the King of Kong, to be the high scorer. And that's how pivotal this game was. This was the game that made Nintendo a huge success in the industry, and at the same time, when brought home, made Coleco a huge name in the industry. So a lot of history with this game, and if you haven't played any Donkey Kong yet, then you gotta try at least Donkey Kong or Donkey Kong Jr. Avoid 3 though. Donkey Kong.
Avoid that with the bugs and the
Donkey Kong 3
Galaga,
sucks.
Space Invaders. But like I said, also check out that documentary or film or whatever you'd like to call it. It's a good time. I shared it with many people and they've enjoyed it. Or check out Chasing Ghosts Beyond the Arcade, an even better point of view on classic arcade games and the people involved with them.
And I would also recommend checking out Donkey Kong Math, because that one's not bad.
That's an interesting title, but that's for another thing altogether.
What is that on? What systems is that?
Nintendo NES.
Well,
Donkey Kong Math.
We're gonna have to hunt that down one of these days and do some math.
If you haven't had enough,
yes, Donkey Kong Jr. math, because Donkey Kong, of course, already knows math. Young Junior here is learning.
Needs to learn, absolutely. But I think we've had enough of Donkey Kong talk, so we're gonna move on to our next game.
Okay, here we're looking at a game from Taito, who made their name with Space Invaders, and all of a sudden became so huge. Space Invaders, the game, became so huge that there was a coin shortage in Japan because all the arcade machines were sucking up the quarters. So Coleco once again tries to pick out some of these games that weren't brought home yet that were arcade hits. This one not quite as great as Space Invaders, but not a bad game. Frontline.
Yeah, it's a top-down type shooter game, kind of in the same tradition as like a game as like Gunsmoke and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a lot very similar to Gunsmoke, and I like how they do the kind of jig walk there. I thought it kind of reminded me of Cowboys, the way they just kind of saunter in there.
Yeah, it's got a kind of a strange walking mechanic.
You don't see many games where the players saunter.
It's not in Television Running Man.
No, but you get much more detailed men than we would ever see on the Intellivision.
Yeah, this is... You can see like detailed parts of clothes, where as on the Intellivision you would see things that look like Christmas ornaments and
the running man that's just a single color. You know, we have a lot of colors on screen here.
The stick figure. Whereas this, you get you have many different things going on at the screen. You have the people going around, your enemies, the bullets firing. You have to watch out for mines. It's kind of, and they're tricky too. They'll hide in the bushes and then come out and ambush you.
But this is what happens when you're on the front line.
Oh yeah.
Against the evil blue with black pants.
Who are the evil blues?
I don't know, but you're only to wear red shirts with blue pants, and they've...
Oh my god, we're playing as the British.
They've gone awry.
Dude, we're killing Americans here.
I'm gonna say that they're native Australians.
Native
Aborigines.
Australians.
I don't know where they got guns from, but...
This isn't a Sega console. We can't be fighting Australians.
That's true, yeah, that was Sega's thing. I don't know why. But...
Boomerangs.
Yes, and we seem to get a 9 randomly appearing on the screen there. That same pixel on every game keeps messing up for some reason.
I think we may have one, like, contact messed up on our system.
Yeah,
there.
and it consistently on every game appears. But whatever. We can deal with that. We're just imagining that's a UFO. I don't know.
Whoa,
now
we are fighting UFOs.
Now we are fighting UFOs.
Oh,
he got...
You have no chance.
He got done blasted, soldier.
One-man army. Army of one against the tank. Notice he has a giant H on him.
Yeah, he does.
Is he like a superhero? Like Hydrogen Man? Or Hot
Sure.
Soup Man?
I'm never letting you write a comic book, Ray. If these are the ideas, unless Hydrogen Man can blow up, then it might work.
Well, yeah, he's like a bomb.
There are bombs in the game, so that's Frontline.
It's a quick, fun game.
Yeah, you can see you just keep going along trying to stay alive, basically, and kill the wretched blue. So let's move on to something you're not going to see very often in the video game industry. The double-sided cartridge, the dreaded Zonox Double Ender.
If you own ColecoVision, you already own a powerful state-of-the-art computer that gives you the arcade experience with the newest arcade games like Donkey Kong Jr., Looping, Pepper 2, Time Pilot, Mr. Do, Space Fury, Frontline, arcade controls like Turbo, the Roller Controller, and new Super Action Sports. And soon you'll plug in Atom, the revolutionary ColecoVision family computer module with new Super Games, keyboard, and printer. ColecoVision, the only system you'll ever need.
Hey, that's Frogger!
Yeah, it's the official tabletop version of the arcade game.
It plays the same! Where'd you get it? Mr. Arcade is here! Galaxian, it's mine! Pac-Man! You want to take it home? Yeah! My own Pac-Man! Mr. Arcade, could you? Donkey Kong? Donkey Kong?
The official tabletop version!
Frogger, Donkey Kong, and Midway's Pac-Man and Galaxian, the arcade games you can take home with you from Coleco.
Here comes co-star O.J. Simpson, Daryl LaMonica, Len Dawson, Harvey Schultz. Harvey Schultz? Yes, Harvey, champion at Pro Star Electric Football by Coleco. Now with Coleco's exclusive offensive quarterback, he passes, complete, touchdown! He kicks for the extra point, and it's good! Watch this instant replay. Action football, Pro Star or collegiate, from the Coleco world of sports, where the action is.
Hey, it's me talking, the Fonz Pinball. Wanna play me?
Play the Fonz Pinball, a rugged machine with plenty of fast action.
Pretty slick, huh?
The Fonz Pinball is the real thing, with drag strip raceways. Lots of bumper action, too. Watch those independent action flippers.
Perfect.
Bells, lights, real scoring. The Fonz Pinball Machine.
Hey.
By Coleco.
Introducing the ColecoVision Roller Controller. With it, your vision expands. Now, speed all over the screen. Fire up or down. It comes with Slither as a bonus. But the excitement doesn't stop there. It makes arcade games like Pepper even peppier. Spaceships travel at the speed of light, and apes go ape. Expand your vision with the Roller Controller. Because your vision is our vision. ColecoVision.
Target announces the grand opening sale of its 19 new Los Angeles stores. Target's exploding prices on ColecoVision. Experience arcade game quality with push-button keyboards and 8-direction joysticks. Complete with Donkey Kong cartridge for just $169.99. Or save on Record-a-Call. It replays messages by remote control.
Kevin, call your mother.
Sale priced at $129.99. All 19 Los Angeles stores are celebrating the grand opening sale at Target.
I'm so excited right now. You don't even know.
We are playing the Zonox Double Ender, Z-O-N-O-X company released cartridges
there he is.
that would plug in on either end and had two different games on one single cartridge. And here we're playing one of these terrible games.
Oh man,
and
waiting
who is
weeks.
Who is this featuring? Who is that pallor character?
Oh, you know who that is, Ron? I am going to tell you right now. All right, this is Chuck Norris. Indeed, look at him. Look at him posing and not fighting. What's going on?
That's Chuck.
Seriously, and I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen on the internet, I have waited weeks to play this game. From the moment I saw it, I was so excited.
This is Chuck Norris double kicks.
I'm trying.
He's trying to double kick.
I would rather pose. Oh, take that.
He beat him.
All right, explain to me why the enemy is an African American. Chuck Norris is not a racist, so I don't get that, but whatever. I guess African American. I don't know. But anyhow, I've been waiting weeks to play this game, so I'm really just going to really enjoy this and ham it up and, really enjoy that. Oh, Ninja Star. Snap.
So this is probably one of the first games that we saw licensed from a celebrity or movie star or martial artist that way. This game has nothing to do with anything except the fact that it's supposed to be Chuck Norris that you're playing as.
He does have his trademark blonde hair, dirty blonde.
Yeah.
Hair and blue sweater, I guess. Blue turtleneck. He's known for
which he wears everywhere.
Evidently, I'm not Walker, Texas Ranger in this, but I can deal with that.
And nowadays, Chuck Norris has really become an internet craze for things that are just plain badass. I think with a title named Super Kicks, that lives up to the Chuck Norris lore. And he's almost a joke to our generation, but to the older set, he was really an awesome martial artist. He trained with Bruce Lee and was really renowned as a martial artist and as a movie star martial artist. So here you see the Chuck super kicking his way to
stardom,
to victory.
Absolutely.
Against the evil brown man.
I'm so excited about this. You have no idea. And
it's terrible.
And we have dealt with recently the constant slew of Chuck Norris jokes. And the man he just takes it with such a grain of salt. He's actually laughed at these jokes himself. And whether it be the Chuck Norris one-liners or it be the Walker Texas Ranger What was that tree branch blocking your way?
Apparently
Chuck
you
does
have
not
to-
get blocked.
you've
We
got-
found his only weakness right now.
His only weakness
A
is
fallen tree.
And when he steps into grass, he loses time.
What is
That's all that can stop the
but
Chuck.
You have to understand, Chuck gets so in love with nature. You know, he has such a respect for the earth and everything that he has to stop and really take in the awe and wonder of all things.
He gets caught up.
He really does. And only a man such as Norris could really appreciate what nature has to provide for us. But as I was saying, you know, Conan O'Brien has the Walker Texas Ranger lever. You know, as he pulls that lever, it shows a scene from Walker. Why not? I mean, also, you know, total respect to the man. Chuck Norris does a lot of work for charity now on different Christian networks and such. So he is an honorable person who happened to get a Coleco game. So got to give that to him.
For some reason, Zonox saw an opportunity and they cashed
went for it.
in.
I mean, Steven Seagal didn't get a
no.
Coleco game.
No,
Bruce
he didn't.
Lee, I don't know if he did or not. He might have, but
No, I don't think he
I
did.
think Chuck Norris was the mascot. He was Coleco's and television running man. He was Coleco's Mario when they weren't using Mario. He was Coleco's Chuck Norris.
They were
I mean,
trying.
what else do you
They were
need?
trying a lot. They had Donkey Kong and Chuck Norris. They figured one of them were going to take off like hotcakes.
Like gangbusters.
Gangbusters.
But you know, honestly, this game's pretty terrible.
It is. You just kind of travel along the path and then get in random battles with this guy that
But
throws
he can't battle
crap at
because
you.
he's enjoying nature. Look at those apple trees, you know, turning crisp orange in the autumn sun or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going on. But I mean, it's Chuck Norris. Our love of Chuck. Why not? And the man hasn't aged in 30, 50 years. You know,
No,
he's still 27.
Still as ripped, still as
prime for
leathery
battle.
looking. He is ready. He does not care.
He is. He's the first white man.
The
to
first
find
and
peace.
last action hero.
Truly, indeed. I think Chuck Norris will be, if he does pass away, he will be one that is redone. He's kind of going to have that same notoriety as Hitler. Or Walt Disney. not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. Both with fine mustaches he never had.
Both hated Jews, so maybe Norris hates Jews. I'm not quite sure.
We're not quoting that. You know, Norris... Is it reset time? Sorry. Well, I'm just saying, the same notoriety, the same... not respect. Maybe he falls in between Disney and Hitler.
Let's say Mickey Mantle and Lou Gehrig.
All
let's
right,
pick
that's
some,
a better
some
comparison. I
safer
apologize.
celebrities there.
Yeah. Hitler and Disney, that's a pretty wide
Norris
range.
is up there with Hitler, but I don't think he probably wants to be used in the same sentence.
I apologize to you, Mr. Norris. Do not show up with any of your possessed powers, which are many. You know, actually, there's a bar here in Clarion County where we're stuck. Clarion County, Pennsylvania. I'll give a shout out to it.
Don't come there ever.
Yeah, don't. Please stay away. This is how you become a New Gen Gamers member because there's nothing else to do. Fun. But one of our bars around here, they actually have like the top 20 Chuck Norrisisms or whatever they call those. I believe it's Chuck Norrisisms on the wall. So that explains kind of how redneck and awesome it is around here. But big ups to Chuck. I love Chuck Norris. Can't watch any of his movies though. They are boring as hell. They really are.
As a person, though, as a person, he's a class act.
He is, but
he's definitely not Hitler.
He's definitely in the same acting league as Keanu Reeves and other cardboard cutouts that are somehow animated.
But for our generation, he's kind of a joke. He's kind of a joke. I mean, none of us are going to actually sit down and watch a Chuck Norris movie.
I'm never watching Firewalker ever again.
He's such a good martial artist. He trained directly with...
That was on the other side.
Well yes, Ray. They don't make it the same every time.
They
Come
have to
on here.
mix
This
it
is
up.
you gotta mix it up. A little randomness.
But I agree with you, Ron. You know, he is kind of a joke, but also, in truth, a respectable human being for what he has done, for the humbleness and the, you know, whenever he, like I said, whenever he saw these Chuck Norrisisms, you know, he just kind of laughed and said, "That's fun. I get it."
And he's been training, and he's been a famous martial artist since the '60s. I mean, he's never slowed down, never quit. And
he's in better shape than I am at 72.
Yeah,
I'm 24.
He could kick
and
all three of our asses in one sitting, and not be out of breath, and we would be.
Yeah, I would be out of breath if he walked in here because I smoked too many cigarettes. Be Chuck Norris and have a heart attack. And then he would revive me with one of his powers.
All right, so let's flip this cartridge over and check out the other end of the double ender.
Woo! Whoa.
And it just really doesn't fit together either. We go from Chuck Norris super kicks to artillery duel.
Who knows?
For some reason. Whatever.
Let's check it out. That was fun.
Hitler.
I'm sorry.
Seriously.
He's on par with Hitler. And then that's funny when you said about Walt Disney, because Walt Disney was known to be an anti-Semite.
I like that we had played. Oh, that was so worth 2 months of anticipation
Wasn't
to play
it?
that.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Oh, that's peaceful.
So we go from one crappy game and we get another. This is a 2-for-1 package, and really I think this is something that game developers that aren't very talented could maybe learn from. If you are going to go for quantity over quality, go for the double ender.
You know, and I found what the tie-in is between Chuck Norris super kicks and this game is those mountains that Chuck saw in the distance. This is what's happening on the other side of them.
Ah, at the same time in another part of the world, while Chuck Norris is fighting black guys, we've got artillery duel.
And
so we're going to be looking at one of our few two-player games we're going to be playing here today. But this is Ray versus Ron in an intense battle to blow each other up. And this game isn't the greatest, but it is kind of fun. If you had another person to play with, this isn't too bad. So you adjust your barrel here, adjust how much powder you have in, check the wind, lick your finger and stick it up in the air, and then try and drop a bomb on your enemy.
Oh,
just
yeah.
missed. Got a 9% damage on me though through the area of effect damage on this explosion.
That was a pretty nice shot.
So I got the wind coming at me, so maybe I'll up the barrel here a little bit up to 70. Let's go for a 75 powder.
Got the wind at my back.
I'm gonna fire this baby off.
This kind of reminds me of Worms or even Rampart. If you ever played that
wow.
game, you know, you have to kind of
way overshot
a lot
that
like
one.
Worms, I guess. Not very peaceful on the other side of those mountains, Chuck.
So I'm up again here, apparently because I'm losing. So we're going to definitely turn the barrel down a little bit on that. Apparently I misread which way the wind means it's going. We'll turn the powder down a little bit. And fire!
That's mine!
No. Well, for some reason I'm apparently controlling you as well.
You bastard! You took my turn!
So apparently you don't need two controllers. So let me... No, you don't get to do me now. See, I can't control it. Oh, yeah, I can. Okay.
Oh, yeah?
If one person's pressing the controller, the other one can't on the second controller. Apparently.
Huh.
So you...
That's kind of broken.
Well, it's kind of nice because you can use one or two controllers. You know, you're not forced to have the two controllers. And I way undershot on this one, so my feather touch is not very good here.
I had my thing was set.
So now that I've got Ray disoriented, now's my time. Ray's back on the offensive. And your goal here is to blow them out of their little position. You want to blow all the land up around them and completely blow up their artillery as we duel in artillery duel. But don't go!
Oh, direct hit.
That was painful. Oh, we've got warning sounds going off on that one. Okay, well, let's take another shot at this. I'm going to take my chances with this. I don't know.
Oh.
A little bit extra zing on it this time. It's going to be close, but not close enough.
Almost.
So Ray's got a strong advantage here. He knows where I'm at. He's got me pinned in. And this is all you do. This is the whole game, is just battling.
Boom!
Oh my goodness. That was it. Look at those flashing lights. I'm done.
My
So
little
it's
box
now
guys.
1-0 as his army men travel across the bottom of the screen. So let's go for another one here. As it goes to night, and he dances in the splendor of victory.
Woohoo! Splendor victory.
So
It's
these
splendiferous.
Zonox double enders, they did a whole series of them. They all had 2 different games on different ends of the cartridge, and they're really goofy looking. They're about the size of is this you or me? This is me, I think.
Oh yeah.
Little
Yep.
dot on me. They're about double the size of a regular cartridge, and have a cartridge plug-in on either end. And wow, the wind was really whipping that time, and it just kicked up some more. So Ray's got the wind coming towards him, so that gives you a level of randomness in these, so that your battles aren't the same every time, because that wind
It
really
varies every time.
Yeah, and it really does affect how far you can shoot.
And I'm gonna have to put a little more oomph on that one.
Last time the wind was blowing towards me, and so I had to overshoot. This time I'm going with the wind, so I definitely need to undershoot this sucker. I'm gonna drop. No, quit going down.
You can do it by 5s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the barrel goes by 5s.
We'll go
Powder
ahead and go
goes
with
by
it.
1s.
So we'll go ahead and turn that down a little bit. Take another shot. Wow, that sucker is zinging.
Ooh.
Not even
You
close.
killed somebody over in another village.
We may have taken out some civilians on that one.
Let's see.
So after you got done playing a little Chuck Norris super kicks, whoa, that one's going like straight up in the air. You could turn the cartridge over and play some artillery duel. And we're creating a canyon here. The wind just whipped up again, up to 24. Jeez.
That's the challenge on
We're
yours.
going to be in a windstorm here. Those clouds are moving.
Look at them. Yeah, the clouds are keeping up with the wind.
Oh, this is... Now, you'll also notice the mountains change every time too. So I've got a tough shot here because I've got to arc it directly over that little mountain in front of him and try and pop it onto him. Or I could try and bust up the land in front of him and get a shot that way. So a little bit of strategy involved. For being kind of a low-end game
powder.
company, this is fun.
Yeah, Chuck Norris wasn't a horrible game in comparison to other stuff out at the time.
Wow.
Because basically, how many games did you have that perspective in?
Yeah, it was something different. It just kind of repeated. And as far as the battling of that guy, you just battle him.
Yeah, just the one guy.
He keeps coming after you, apparently. Oh, I have been damaged. 13% damage. Warning.
Oh yeah, I played a lot of Worms back in the day. If that says anything.
And I had worms. Worms is not a good thing to have because when you poop, they'll hold your poop together. I've seen it happen to dogs. So there I took the tip off that mountain a little bit, so maybe I can get one arced in there on him now. Ray's got my positioning down pretty good, so unless that wind changes, I may be in trouble. Curse slam, that was bad. That was it. Done. Exploded.
Wow!
So Ray has taken the best of 3 tournament of artillery duel. Chuck Norris has won the day. I think it's time to move on to another cartridge. Let's end the double ender.
Time to move
Something
on.
you would never really see. I think that's the only company that ever tried that I know of. So if you got a Coleco, double your fun with a double ender. We are playing Popeye, and you'll notice, of course we won't have these in all these, but there was no load up screen on this one. This is a Parker Brothers published title. This was another early Nintendo arcade game, but
collect the hearts.
but published by Parker Brothers. And also another thing we noticed with this cartridge is that Parker Brothers had their own cartridge they like shape. They had kind of a weird shape, and all of the Parker Brothers games were shaped like that on the Atari 2600 and on the Coleco.
You got the spinach. Go get him.
So now Popeye has turned completely green because he's high on spinach, and he's ready to kick ass. Once he gets anyone who, at this point, maybe younger people don't know much about Popeye. I don't know, but Popeye.
That wasn't spinach.
Popeye is an old cartoon character that he was a stereotypical Irishman that was a sailor, and he would eat spinach to gain strength because his antagonist Bluto, which would be that big red and yellow blob up at the top or in the middle, would always kidnap or harass his woman Olive Oil. So Popeye would have to eat some spinach and whoop some ass. And he would go,
Funny side note, Olive Oil, the character design was based on a member, I believe it was a member of Congress or something, I can't remember exactly. It was based on the one woman who voted against going into World War II. So look more into the history of that. But, that's an interesting fact.
I never
that was
knew.
Basically the artist who drew the character's way of giving her the middle finger, basically, because she's married to a Navy man, or she's engaged, or whatever the hell they were. You know, she was kind of a lush, I guess, in a sense, or not a lush, that's the wrong word, kind of a whore. Because, you know, she's got this strong man Popeye, eats his spinach, and then Pluto's always coming along and trying to steal his bitch, you know.
Well,
and
she wasn't really willing,
she never
though.
really
It was more...
went for it, but yeah, what a dick. If you kids out there don't know about Popeye, you need to check out some of the stuff. And check out the Robin Williams movie. First film that Robin Williams ever starred in. He played Popeye, and I'll tell you what, dead ringer.
He did a really good job on that. He's got the hairy forearms, and he did the voice really well, and the look. I almost forgot about that movie. It's kind of campy nowadays. It's kind of humorous, but not bad. And I didn't know that was his first movie. So.
Yeah, that was his first film.
So there you go, gang.
Mindy.
You've got your Popeye trivia here. Popeye was, of course, popular in the 1940s before there was television. You would go to the theater, and it's not like our theaters today where you just go watch one feature-length film. That was your evening's entertainment, so you would get a bunch of different programs. You'd get the news, you'd get some cartoons, you'd get a movie.
You get your cereals back then.
Get your...
Back to the Buck Roger idea, you know, even a Batman cereal back then.
Yeah, so, you know, that was your whole form of entertainment besides your radio. So Popeye was a big star during that time. This is before the Looney Tunes and any of the big cartoon series besides, of course, the aforementioned Walt Disney.
Well, and let's also go back to the fact that Nintendo, the Popeye, originally Miyamoto had wanted to get Popeye for Donkey Kong, or do a game based on Popeye, and he couldn't get the rights to the character, so he ended up doing Donkey Kong. Eventually he did create the Popeye game.
So there you go. Donkey Kong is a poor man's Popeye, and then they came along and did the Popeye. This is a tough game. You've got to
collect the hearts. A certain amount of them, and then avoid the nemesis there. And
Bluto,
is that his name? I always want to say Pluto, but it is Bluto.
It is definitely Bluto.
Where's the hamburger guy? Where's that dude at?
What was his name?
I can't remember.
It's been so long since I've watched Popeye.
He
loved cheeseburgers.
There he
is.
In the bottom left.
He was fat and portly, and he always wanted cheeseburgers.
He's the all-American man.
He loved cheeseburgers.
And this is based on the Nintendo game, but as we said, it's done by Parker Brothers.
Well, this is the Nintendo game. It was just published by Parker Brothers.
Okay, I see.
This was before, I assume, either before or after Nintendo had the publishing deal with Coleco. And so Parker Brothers published this.
And we do see a lot of influence from Donkey Kong, but this is a whole different experience altogether, and there was an NES version of this.
Definitely a different game.
Yeah. This is...
And there he got him. He's knocked Bluto off the screen. Go get Olive Oil. Jump on...
Go get her.
Jump on Ollie. Is his name Ollie or something?
I can't remember.
I can't remember the fat dude's name. Oh! Look at this.
And the baby up there. In that thing. So
his name was Sweet Pea.
Sweet Pea the baby. You know, and this...
I don't think it was a nephew or something,
I
wasn't
always
it?
felt bad for Popeye. You know, he tries so hard to get to that skin foot of a woman, and seriously, she really... He's trying too hard, you know. It's like she should be begging him for some attention, and the poor guy always has to fight his way to her. This
He's a
anorexic
dedicated
queen of the frickin' boonies, you know. Look at her.
He's a dedicated man.
He
Popeye
truly is.
stands for things. He
He must
stands
be in
for
love.
war. He stands for eating your greens. And he stands for defending your woman against guys that try and kidnap and have sex with her.
And the spinach, you know, that they believe there was a lot of iron in spinach, more than there is, and that's what they were trying to promote: children eating their iron. You know, once again, using a cartoon character to get kids to buy stuff. We see this in marketing all the time. We still do it all the time. Camel Joe, I miss him personally. I say bring that fucker back.
And those spinach people really know how to market.
Oh, no doubt. They're selling their leafy greens. But, you know, it's a fun game. This version of it's a little bit different than other versions I played of it, but it's still a tight game and difficult.
Yeah,
I gave the remote up to Ray because I was having difficulties.
It's a good port.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, the graphics aren't quite as good as we said with the other ones, but the thing that Coleco did right was
control.
The controls these games play and feel right. You
Absolutely.
know, graphics don't matter so much as getting the actual experience of the game.
If
And
control is tight, you know, I'd rather play a game that looks like this with tight control than play a game that looks great but you can't even move your damn character.
which we saw with the Atari 5200. Those arcade ports were very faithful, but the games, the controller just did not hold up, and it ended up hurting the system. So Coleco did it right on that front, and so we're going to move on to something else, and I'm going to do it one more time.
Today we're gonna have some victory.
Look at all those nice colors in that ColecoVision logo up there.
Yeah, that's
at the top, or the text.
Nice rainbow.
Nice rainbow of colors, letting you know what you're in store for.
Get ready, Cadet 1.
Cadet 1, you have joined the fine forces of the U.S. military. So, Victory, I've never seen this game before, so I'm excited. Are you excited, Internet crowd? I'm excited to see this. How about you, Ray? You excited? Alright, here we go. Ooh, I just noticed something, Ray. Are you using the roller ball?
Yes, I am.
Ah, the Coleco roller controller, eh? A very nice addition. You know, as we talked about before, it really brings the arcade home to the home console. And something that a lot of people, I'm sure, during the 80s really enjoyed. I know we're enjoying it today.
Oh yeah, this roller controller is awesome.
No doubt. So
for those of you that have never used a rollerball, the basic premise of it is to you have like a pool cue, I guess.
Wait, let's make it
in the center of a.
Let's make it easier. Take your mouse, turn it upside down. If you have a classic roller mouse, notice how the ball is sticking out. Now kind of move your hand around on it a little bit, and notice how your mouse moves. Kind of the same idea. Your mouse cursor, I guess I should say, moves.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty much what you're looking at. Now, if you have one of those nice, fancy laser mouses, forget everything I just said, and just don't put it in your eye. Do not shine that in your eye, unless you're planning on not being able to see well. Or if you get lucky, you'll see even better. You never know. Shot in the dark, people. Shot in the dark. A little bit
Cheap
of LASIK
LASIK
surgery.
I don't think it quite works that way, but
the way the roller controller looks, it's really nice. Like we said, the two ColecoVision controllers fit into this already. It just goes straight into your system, and
not to mention the large fire buttons.
No doubt, those things are huge and orange, so you can't miss them. So I want to talk a little bit more about how Coleco kind of screwed Atari, and let's face the fact, everyone was about screwing Atari in the 80s, which I don't blame them. They were making the money. You might as well get in on a piece of the pie. Now, the Coleco eventually released an Atari 2600 clone known as the Coleco Gemini. Now, what was nice about the Coleco Gemini, it had the 8-way joystick, the same as the Atari 2600, but it also had a 270-degree paddle on the bottom of the remote. So imagine the top has the joystick part, the bottom has the remote, and the side has the fire button, or whatever they call it. A fire button, right?
Yeah.
I think it was mostly called. And I guess that gave you a better range of motion. You know, recently I played an Atari 2600 with a thing called a slick stick, which had 16 ranges of motion. And I'll tell you what, we played. Oh, I'm sorry, it had 8. Hopefully, Ron will. Okay, sorry. The Atari had 4 ranges of motion, so this having 8 ranges of motion was a far superior to what the Atari was providing at the time. And I do want to talk again about that slick stick, though. What was that game I played? I would think it was Quest. The one with the dragon ducks. What is that? The Atari classic, the Quest.
Adventure or Quest?
Adventure. Sorry, my bad. Adventure. And I'll tell you what, I didn't know that your man could go diagonally, but with that slick stick, that thing was sweet as hell. I was just cruising across that game. But anyhow, but once again, like I said, this clone was released, and this was after Atari sued Coleco, and I'm not sure. I'm not very good with the fine print, but basically there was a loophole where if you used off-the-shelf parts, you could create an Atari 2600 clone and sell it on your own. So I'm sure Atari wasn't very happy about this whole situation, but once again, what can they do? And by this point, everything was heading downhill anyhow.
And along with that, at this time, they were using a lot of the same computer components, whereas today the video game systems are so specialized. They have custom-built processors, custom-built video cards,
and patents out the wazoo.
And patents out the wazoo for every single piece of hardware and every little nuance that they can claim. And at this time, it was all new and everything was kind of open, so a lot of people took advantage of that. And as we see here, they did that with Atari system, and then it happened to them later. I mean, after they were out of the industry, but that Bit Corporation.
Yeah, Bit Corporation came along.
They came along and put together a Coleco the same way. So this was definitely a different kind of thing, and we'd have to see down the road how the companies would get a lot more forceful in protecting their hardware.
I like how Ray, when he explodes into a series of Cheerios that go or hula hoops, if you will. But I just had to put that observation in there. But yeah,
well observed.
And like I said,
flying sleds.
Well, we already see it with the Coleco. They released the Model 1 that it supports the 2600 games, and then we see this also, the side Gemini.
The modules, they were just add-ons, off. Basically, you buy it like you bought another game or another peripheral for the system. And for people who weren't savvy to what was happening in the industry, because all this stuff was new, they wouldn't have any clue that this wasn't, supported by Atari. They would just see it and say, well, hell, I can have so many more games on this system than I can on the Atari or the Atari 5200 or Intellivision or RCA Studio 2, anything else that was available at that time. And
this is time before the interwebs. We have to put ourselves back in the 80s, People weren't as well educated in these types of things.
Yeah,
so they
weren't publications.
2600.
All they saw was what was in the store. There weren't publications. There wasn't a culture around it. You just saw what was in the arcade, what your friend told you about, and what you saw on the store shelf.
And then you went and mowed so many lawns to get that thing, or you
Delivered
shoveled so many driveways. You begged mom and dad, and they told you to get a job at 13. That's the way the 80s worked.
Yep.
If you wanted to see E.T., you know how many yards you had to mow? If you wanted to play E.T. on your Atari 2600 or Coleco Gemini, I wouldn't suggest it. But people did. They went out and got it, or got it for free eventually, but that's a whole different story. But there's another aspect of the Coleco I want to kind of go into, which was the vaporware. Now, I'll just touch on this briefly.
Vaporware, of course, being a product that was rumored, assumed to exist, maybe would have came out, but just never saw the light of day.
And we still see vaporware to this day. We just call it,
yeah,
it becomes delayed games, or a lot of these titles, I'm not sure if they were just mock-ups that happened, but these were games that they said were coming out, even to the point where they would put them on the back of the Coleco box. And on a side note, remember how exciting it was to get that Nintendo and look at all those cool games on the back of that box that you could get eventually?
Well, that was a big selling point with all these. how you found out about new games back then was you looked on the back of the box or the posters that came included, and that's how you saw what the next big thing was. And so they were marketing and advertising games that wouldn't exist here.
Yeah, which is a shame because a lot of people, I'm sure, got hyped, you know. But we see games fall into limbo all the time. Even now in the year 2009, we see this happen. You know, it does kind of suck because, you know, I can imagine sitting at home just going, where is that game? You mowed so many yards to get the money and it never came out.
Putting it on the packaging, though, definitely would fall under the terms of false advertising, though, you know.
But luckily they didn't go the same way as the Intellivision, where they postpone that keyboard, and then finally, you know, they were forced by the government to put it out. I guess they never forced them to put out Smurfs, the video game, but you know, it's kind of a shame it never came out.
Well, they did have Smurfs. Yeah, there was,
oh, they did.
There was 2 different Smurfs
Well,
games.
Too much Smurfs then.
Yeah, I think
the government should have stepped in there and divided that shit up.
Absolutely, the Coleco per capita has more Smurfs-related video games than
I
any
think
other
Smurfs
video
were in
game
that one
system.
game we played, that shooting game too. Remember the blue guys? More Smurfs.
Yeah.
Gargamel, get on that.
Well,
What's your problem?
with the Intellivision, we had the Running Man. With the ColecoVision, we have the Smurfs.
Hanna-Barbera.
And
shame.
So, we won't get to play the Smurfs games today, but those were decent games for it. Though I forget what it is. Something Gargamel's something is
Kingdom
a decent
of Sheep. Who knows?
Is a decent game, kind of a platformer. But do you have some of these other vaporware titles?
No, I didn't write that many down, and I can't think of any that many off the top of my head. But I know they existed, and like I said, it's kind of a shame that they never saw the light of day. But that happens.
Oh, that's something that consistently happens for myriad reasons.
Look at the Capcom 7 that were supposed to be released for the GameCube. You know, that's we got what, 1 or 2 of those titles eventually. So you know, that's just a modern example of that.
And there's, you know, outside interferences. You know, a partnership could break down, a company could go bankrupt. Lots of things can always happen to cause a game to not come out.
And you're just sitting at home staring at the back of the box, hoping and hoping and hoping. But it happens. But anyhow, I've had enough of my soapbox ramble here, so I think we're going to move on to our next game.
Let's do some bumping and maybe some jumping.
Woo! Data East.
From another Japanese developer, Bump and Jump. And as we spoke about, Coleco was one of the first companies to really bring a lot of Japanese games over, where nowadays Japanese games are so ingrained in the console industry that we couldn't imagine not having Japanese games. The Atari and Intellivision didn't have that many.
Look at that. Classic Bump and Jump.
Now this is a really, really fun game. An arcade game, again, that you travel along and you've got to avoid the other vehicles, try and avoid getting hit into the side, and whenever it tells you you need to jump. I don't know how this vehicle jumps that high, but it does it.
You know, and that was the interesting twist of Bump and Jump is, look at that jump. You can crash them, gain some points, and I like the cover art. It kind of looked like Archie and Jughead, Archie Comics, for the cover art of the Nintendo version of this. But I've always enjoyed Bump and Jump, and if you can make it past the 3rd, 4th level, you're king in your own world. I think I've made it to like level 8 once. Not this version. This is completely different than the version I'm used to.
Another similar take on this a few years later would be Spy Hunter from Midway. Played pretty similar to this, except without all the jumping.
More with the weapons.
And you know, there's been some other designs that have been similar to this, but never to the extent of both bumping and jumping that this game meshes together so wonderfully.
Yeah, this game really gave you some cool play mechanics that weren't seen back in those days. I mean, you weren't used to being able to drive a car and then just jump on another one.
People's minds were blown.
It was like, what? I can bump and jump?
They were used to one or the other.
Yeah. And now you got the best of both worlds.
This is what the 80s brought us.
Oh, that's a That's rough
And
right there.
it's a hard game because you'll land on small platforms and try and get ready for your next jump, and there's a lot of timing if you want to get far in it. So it's not just the same thing over and over again like a lot of the early arcade stuff. You've got to...
Yeah, there's like a set path in this game.
Yeah, you've got to learn the level and learn where to go, where to be, and where to jump to continue going on.
Yeah, and it's a fun title.
Absolutely. This is one I remember playing on the NES a lot. I've never played this version much or the arcade, but you know, any version you play is pretty much the same and pretty good. And I believe they also have this on the Atari 2600, and it's not quite as good. It's pretty dumbed down, but you know, you're still bumping and jumping, of course.
Yeah. More of a blocky bump and jump. Here they kind of look like cars.
They have axles, so that adds to it. The next season is spring.
I believe in the Atari 2600 version, E.T. drove the car.
And as we said, the Running Man was in all the Intellivision games. We'd like to think that E.T. was actually
in all the Atari games. I believe he was.
He was that blocky and just
he was the
crept
cause
along.
of the space invading and impending Earth doom. You know, he was a shady character. I dare you to watch that movie again with that in mind. You'll see his master plan unfolding. Frickin' getting drunk. Anyhow, but I do enjoy Bump and Jump. This is a very different experience to what I'm used to, but at the same time a very, very tight experience. That's what we've noticed with all these games is tight play mechanics. You know, that's what can be said of the Coleco. That's what can be said of the Intellivision. That they really had that on. And once again, you know, I've seen these controllers for years, the wonky numeric pads. I thought, what are those used for? Some games are used for nothing. In the end, it's all you need is a joystick and a fire button. But
yeah,
why not?
Yeah, as we've looked at, the Intellivision was really the only system with the numeric keypad that put it to full use in just about every game. Essentially because most of the other stuff that we saw on those types of controllers were arcade ports, which didn't have the need for the extra buttons in their design. So the Intellivision games were designed with that in mind, so you saw a lot better use.
It comes down to monkey see, monkey do. You know, emulation. You know, what is it?
You try and do whatever seems most successful, and we keep saying, kind of putting down what Atari was doing, but that was just because they were the big dog. Everyone else came along trying to do better than them. When they came out with that joystick, it went 4 directions and had 1 fire button, but that was incredibly novel compared to the Pong games that were out. So, you know, that was a huge step up in the advancement of video games, and now we've seen kind of the end of that first generation. Things started to evolve past that and make that look kind of archaic. Now, one other thing is, we were speaking about vaporware during the last game. There was one other huge piece of vaporware that would have been another really cool item for the Coleco to have.
Yes, the Intellivision model. So I was going to say the vaporware, but they were planning on releasing a Intellivision model that you could play Intellivision games on your Coleco. But because of the crash, this never went into full production and never saw the light of day.
So this was supposed to be Module 4.
Yes, Module 4.
They seem to name everything as different modules.
Making your Coleco the all-in-one system to have.
Collect all the modules after spending $1,000.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, this would make the Sega shit look bad, but
if
it would run properly, most likely.
Yeah, hopefully it would all work together and not need 18 plugins. But that Intellivision add-on would have been really nice, and the Intellivision games would have ported pretty well over to the Coleco. So
but once again, something that never saw the light of day.
Never saw the light of day. The crash, just you know, time and again we'll look at this system because they never apexed. They just literally crashed because of the crash.
You know, and it's such a short period of time. The Coleco, unlike the other systems, you know, the Atari had a long lifespan, even after it died.
Yeah, the Atari literally had a 10-year lifespan.
And the Intellivision has had a longer lifespan because of the fan service by its own developers.
Yeah.
Whereas we see with the Coleco, not a lot of original titles. Yes, arcade love, but it was done over and over again to the point where this is a forgettable system. You know, a 2-year lifespan, longer after, 2 years after, you know, 86 in other countries, 88 with the re-release of the system that would play both Coleco and overseas the Sega games. But
yeah,
you know,
and
a short lifespan.
But that wasn't by Coleco, and it wasn't supported by Coleco, so the company itself just literally ditched the video game industry once things fell apart.
But we will see eventually the legacy that it has left, and we'll get into that later
What's
on.
unfortunate about it, though, is they got stuck in the crash. They didn't cause the crash, whereas Intellivision and Atari flooded the market with way too many games. Coleco was still releasing original great games, not so much original, but great games, and not flooding the market so much, where, you know, they sold 6 million units in 2 years and did not
When did
peak.
that Dyna thing release?
86.
86.
Europe, in 88 we got our version.
Okay. Well, Coleco went bankrupt in 88 after all the other mayhem that was going on.
Yeah, so Coleco just in the scope of the video game industry, they were kind of a one-hit wonder. You know, they had some decent stuff, but this was their one big hit, and after it faded, so did the company.
All right, we're gonna move on here.
We're gonna check out a game that talks.
Presents?
From 1980 something.
Did you see that?
What?
They misspelled presents.
Really? Let's see that again.
Presents.
Ah, gee.
That's kind of funny.
The Intellivision, or the Coleco couldn't do S's.
Yeah, the Coleco couldn't make S's, but it can randomly make 7s and P's appear on our screen. So here we're looking at Squish 'em Sam, an overweight plumber type guy, which apparently during the early 80s was a great inspiration for video game characters. I wonder why.
I don't know.
So you are Sam, and your goal is to squish 'em by climbing up and then dropping down onto the creatures. Kind of a fun game. And as you can kind of maybe hear, he talks and says words. So we're going to crank up the audio here so you can hear a little bit of that. He said whoops, folks. Whoops. Very novel for at the time. When we looked at the Intellivision, we looked at their IntelliVoice module that would allow the games to have limited audio. This one packed it right in on the cartridge.
There we go. Who needs to add that buy that add-on so you can have a little bit of voice action? But once again, it's nerfed. It's not really there, but at least they tried, and that was something novel at the time, you know. We didn't get appropriate voice acting really until, well, I guess the Sega Genesis really tried it at first. But the Sega CD, and a lot of the CD base, we didn't get the audio that we deserved or needed. But hey, why not? If you can throw it in there.
Yeah, it was just hard with cartridges because audio takes up, especially voice audio, takes up a lot of room on a cartridge, and they didn't have the extra room to spare. They just couldn't do it. And
so what is going on in this game? Are you dodging frisbees, or what are those, turtles, or giant beetles? They kind of, you ever see that movie Enemy Mine? They kind of look like the turtle creatures from that to me, but I like movies with Dennis Quaid in them.
They also kind of look like that iRoomba or whatever, that robot that sweeps your floor.
Ah,
Roomba, yes.
Roombud.
So this is where they got the idea for that. And also a bottle cap.
And you're climbing game over. Look at that.
You're
It
climbing
doesn't say game over.
pipes or something.
Who knows what's going on? But we're squishing them. Remember that.
That's all that honestly matters. It's a pretty fun game.
I like how they couldn't put an S at the beginning in presents, but everything is squishing. Maybe it's supposed to be irony. An inside joke. I don't know.
I don't know, but they presented it.
Pre-Kent. as we call it.
That'd be a K.
It would be pronounced percent.
Percent.
Like percent. Maybe they were saying percent.
Like percent. I don't know. Just a bad typo. This was an American company, right?
I believe so.
Okay. Just making sure we weren't running into, like, bad translation, maybe.
We won't roll it out. Somebody definitely dropped the ball, and we're gonna hold them to that.
Yeah, you can't misspell on your title screen. You can misspell in other places in your game, but not on the title screen. It's just bad. What?
He said whoops.
Well, I heard what he said. I just want to know how it happened. We're back to the bottle caps.
So you just continue along here, climbing up this building or these pipes or whatever it is exactly Sam's squishing.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of maybe a mix between Donkey Kong and kind of, or Beauty and the Beast. Kind of.
Beauty and the Beast was Donkey Kong, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I won't take that comparison. That was what was popular. Time and again in the industry, a popular design comes along, and you have a million variations of that. Pac-Man came along, you saw a million variations of that. Pong, we had a million variations. Asteroids, a million variations. So when Donkey Kong came along, it was very different, and so everyone had to take their attempt at it. And this is essentially a take on that design.
It's an interesting take, though. I kind of like it, and the fact that he talks.
Some fun squishing.
Squishing.
At least the title's cool. Squish 'em, Sam.
Squish 'em, Sam.
Now you're fighting some jellies, apparently, or...
I don't know, those things look kind of mean looking.
I thought they looked cute.
Mean looking!
Maybe it's his googly eyes.
They're evil!
Ray is also afraid of licorice sticks and Q-tips. It's true. But no, it's Mario on rails. But it looks like it's kind of fun. I didn't know what was going on at first. I think this is more along
Donkey Kong,
acting with the Atari titles and make up your own adventure as you go. You know, for whatever reason, he's stuck in the sewers with these demonic bunny creatures, and he must climb the pipes and squish what he can, because he is Squish'em Sam. You know, it's ironic that he has to squish things, and his name originally was Squish'em Sam, but I'm looking way too... Goombas! Goombas! Alright.
I'm gonna say Octoroks.
Alright, Octoroks, Goombas.
Skulls.
Look at this. We are so... Anyhow. We've been fed Nintendo for so long. We are totally the Nintendo generation.
Well, once Nintendo came along, that was the next big revolution. Any gusto that Coleco was trying to build here was totally washed away, and no one remembered the Coleco after the NES came out.
But what can you do? So let's move on to our next game.
We're gonna put Squish'em Sam down, and
thank you for speaking to us, Squish'em Sam. Thank you. And we're gonna check out one of the titles that seem to be an arcade classic.
Hi, hon.
Davy's report card.
It's worse than last time.
He's just not interested. His friend Billy made the honor roll.
He's no smarter than Davy.
But he had help. Joe and Peg got him an Atom.
Atom is the only affordable home computer that comes complete. And Atom offers a variety of educational software that takes minutes to learn. Kids get so involved that learning becomes easier and more fun.
We're getting you an Atom.
Really?
Really.
Atom, the smartest gift you can give your family.
The first electronic football games like these were for only one player.
End run.
but something was missing.
Can I play? Wait your turn.
Then along came head-to-head electronic football by Coleco.
Now we can play at the same time. I'm offense. I'm defense.
With head-to-head, you're really in the game. A power sweep. He fights through for the tackle. You pass. He blitzes. Intercepts.
This is real competition.
Why settle for a one-player game when you can have it all? Play alone, against the computer, or for real competition. Play
head-to-head.
Why settle for less?
Playing on ColecoVision in 1984. War Games, the blockbuster movie, becomes more than just a game on ColecoVision. Tarzan, the original swinger, is still the king of the jungle on ColecoVision. Frontline, the ultimate invasion on a constantly changing battlefield on ColecoVision. Congo Bongo, the hilarious jungle adventure on ColecoVision. Star Trek, fight aliens at the speed of light on ColecoVision. The best game in town keeps getting better.
Gift of quality from Hills. Video game cartridges from Coleco. Cosmic Avenger, Ladybug, Smurf, Venture, the popular Donkey Kong, and more. Hills has Coleco game cartridges to fit your Atari and television and ColecoVision systems for fun you can share. That's the magic of Christmas giving. And Hills' low price, that's the spirit of savings. When you really need a low price, Hills really has it every day.
You're watching the most exciting game you will ever see on your TV set. Telstar by Coleco, with 3 different games. Telstar Tennis, with digital scoring, variable speeds. Telstar Hockey. Each player controls a goalie plus a forward on the other side. Oops, a goal. And Telstar Singles Handball, a game you play yourself. Telstar Handball, Tennis, Hockey. All 3 at an exciting low price. For great family fun, hitch your TV to a Telstar by Coleco.
What does a man of adventure do between adventures? I play Exidy's Venture, the video cartridge that plays just like the arcade game. It sharpens my reflexes. Armed only with an arrow, you hunt for treasure, gold, diamonds, and it's not easy because you have to get past deadly monsters, goblins, snakes, and dragon. Play Venture on your ColecoVision, Atari VCS, or Intellivision video game system. I hate dragon.
ColecoVision presents Exidy's Mousetrap, trademarked. So one of the interesting things about this game is a lot of the games came with overlays, but we're actually using an overlay right now. So I'm excited to see how this works out. And Ray will be playing this game. Oh, wonder what that looks like.
And we talk about clones of popular designs. This is obviously a take on the ultra-popular Pac-Man.
Oh, I thought it was Joyce.
What?
I'm just messing. But yeah, definitely, this is definitely a Pac-Man clone. As we see, we got our mouse and we've got our cats. It's no Boom Boom Rocket, ladies and gentlemen, but it'll do.
And you saw there, Ray flipped the switch.
Ooh.
So you've got to try and capture the mice rather than have them catch you. So they call it Mousetrap, but you're the mouse and you don't want to be captured. So really, Mousetrap is the thing you don't want to happen.
Look at this. This is some intense action right here. Get that cheese. Oh,
we see another game that controls well. You can see how quickly and easily he's moving in those small little areas. Really, you know, the controller, we talked about how it's not very comfortable for long periods of playtime, but for those periods of playtime that you have, it's a lot of fun. And now he has turned the table.
Oh, he has turned the table.
He has transformed into a dog somehow, and
that's a natural evolution. With the dog button, that's natural evolution of a mouse.
This is one of the few games to feature a dog button. On the overlay, there's a picture of a dog.
I think more games should have a dog button, personally, but I don't think my wishes will be met.
We've never seen enough games where you get to play as a dog or switch from mouse to dog, I don't think.
So as we begin to wind down our console wars of the past, our look at the Coleco, I want to talk a little bit more about the failed Model 3 that came out. So the Atom,
Module 3.
Module 3, thank you. I keep saying model for some reason. Module 3.
Because there was only one model of the system.
Everything else was just add-ons that came along. But the Atom ended up being really the death nail before the video game crash. But like I went through the story of how they showed off Donkey Kong, how they, eventually it was too much, and also at the wrong time. It would be interesting to see what would happen if we hadn't went through the crash, but sadly we did.
And everyone tried this. Atari was trying their own computers. Texas Instruments was out there. Apple was out there.
And you have to look also at the price. When it becomes a home computer system, people just amp up that price. A lot of money went into the production of it, and when it came out, it was $399. We can almost say even $400 if you throw on the extra penny.
Just for the module. That
yeah.
On top of the cost of your Coleco, although you could buy the Atom as a standalone computer, and it would also play the Coleco game, so you could get this hardware and play all the same games in two different formats.
Mm-hmm. And this is in the summer of '83. This is released.
But this never worked. These game companies thought they could bring the computer experience to the video game system, and no one's ever been able to successfully do that. We've seen a lot of different ways that this has been attempted, and it's just time and again that it's two different experiences. No one wants to play a game, an arcade game on their TV and then hop over into some accounting software. It hasn't happened yet, and nowadays it's probably closer than we've ever seen the video game systems and computers come together, but still they're very distinct.
And 20-something years later, we're still saying we're kind of iffy. We don't say, yeah, it's happening. We're iffy on that subject. So back during the 80s, when it just wasn't working, it wasn't clicking. So we have to look at the fact that Coleco is hemorrhaging money, millions and millions of dollars, $80 million on this investment. Now what's interesting is at the same time, Coleco has gotten into a bit of the toy business. They're selling the Cabbage Patch Kids, and we all remember that, the classic 80s. And the Cabbage Patch Kids, and also the offshoot, the Trash Pail, whatever it was.
I don't think they were actually affiliated with them.
But still,
the Garbage Pail Kids.
Yeah, but still, that's some creepy stuff.
Check out that movie.
Check out that movie. Check out the trailer, if you will, if you can't find the movie. That is some nightmarish stuff.
Yeah,
and
those
also,
things are freaky.
Coleco is also dealing with Elf, the classic 80s character, the wisecracking Gordon Shumway from the planet Melmac, and they're selling these, but at the same time they can't even out, so eventually they do go bankrupt and they lose both of these.
I have to wonder if Old Man Greenberg wasn't rolling in his grave, or if he was still alive at this point, with what his son had done, because you go from a leather making company, which is a very decided type of industry, to all of a sudden being involved in all sorts of entertainment and amusement. Really just changed how the company was run and what their focus was.
Absolutely. But what can you do? Everything changes with times.
Absolutely. This was what was hot at the time. People weren't so much interested in leather anymore as they were electronic video games, and kids' toys became such a pop culture thing, and
still are to this day in a lot of senses. The Coleco has been mentioned on a lot of TV shows, from South Park, Family Guy, which is hard to put them in the same category because of their own rivalry in a sense. But it is, the people who grew up in the 80s still adore the nostalgia of these systems, as we do most of the systems of the day. Not so much the 5200, but other ones.
And honestly, the Coleco name carries on to this day. They still release different entertainment things. I'm not sure who owns it now, and they've never really pushed for a re-release of the Coleco games, again because there really weren't that many great original games to kind of put compilations together and stuff that they would have the rights to. But we still see plug-and-play devices. We found some weird, lame slumber party game that Coleco makes.
River West Band owns the rights now.
Okay, so
throw that out there.
So the Coleco name still exists in the entertainment industry. So
we gotta hit that little slumber party thing. I do a little bit of shopping for New Gen Gamers, and I happened upon a very interesting looking controller. It was like very.
It looked like something out of a spaceship.
It really did. It looked like it fell right out of the Area 51 spaceship that fell down. It was gray. It had ridges.
It had a weird thing.
It had a blue
globe
buttons
on top. Like
alien-ish.
Like it should light up.
Well, so I find this device And at the same time, I'm thinking this is going to be great. I don't know how it works, but I'm sure through the magic of Coleco, this will hook up to the TV, and we will have ColecoVision yet again. So we get this back to New Gen Gamers headquarters, and we're checking around the interwebs, and we end up finding out this really cool gray space alien type device goes along with a DVD, a Slumber Party Girl DVD. And I believe it or not, the packaging, when we found it on the internet, it's pink and everything. You have this gray remote though,
with two little girls on the side
enjoying their time. And what's going on? You know, was this made for something else to begin with? But a total misdirection. If I was a teen girl, and I saw that, I'd say, "Is that your brother's?"
Yeah, I really don't imagine that it would have been the hugest hit at slumber parties. And of course, it was. I've never been to a slumber party per se, but
I have.
It had slumber party fare, such as, you know, what do you like, what things are you into, whatever.
I'm sure it was gossip about boys and jewelry.
Yeah, and you could have up to 4 players, and they'd each enter in their answers on the same controller. But it just totally misleading. Did not look like something made for a sleepover at all. It looked like a total.
Looked like a guy. It looked like a boy toy.
Guy
really
toy
did.
video game system thingy, not a DVD play along sleepover game for girls.
Well, we do appreciate the misdirection, Coleco.
You got us.
You got us, and we had a mighty laugh over it, and we can't wait to get our hands on that Slumber Party DVD.
We need that DVD. If anyone has that DVD, we want to play this game because
we will put video on the internet of us playing.
We need to share experiences and know which boy each of us likes.
And make sure you stay away from that terrible DVD game. I'm sure it's.
We'll take it off your hands.
We will. We'll help you out. We know it's haunting you. It's in the closet somewhere.
We know you played it that one time and then
you just shook your head in disgust.
Or your mom accidentally got it thinking it was something much cooler.
Yeah. Or she walked in the room while you were playing it. You creepy bastard.
There's at least 2 of them out there.
You know who you are. We wag our fingers at you.
So,
yeah, I mean, this is a good look at a Pac-Man clone, and Ray seems to be enjoying it. And a mouse turns into a dog for whatever reason, but we know the natural enemy of a mouse is a cat, and the natural enemy of a cat is a dog, and the natural enemy of a dog is a shotgun. So, let's move on to our next game. And here we're seeing one of Universal's titles released for the ColecoVision. As we said, Coleco went after a lot of the big name arcade people, Konami, Nintendo, Sega, names that are still today around. And Mr. Do is a game that I'm sure many people who are into classic gaming have tried at one point. You know, it's kind of like Dig Dug and Pac-Man put together in an interesting way.
Yeah, it's one of those hidden gem arcade classics.
And a very fun game and a very tight game. An interesting title that I've enjoyed playing, and Ray's going to enjoy playing right now, and we're going to show it off to you as we kind of wind down on our look at the ColecoVision. We've talked a lot over this time about the different things that happened, but once again, like we said, you know, the ColecoVision was short-lived. It doesn't have that same fanfare, but it does have a little bit. See, in '96, we see a Tetris clone that is called Kevtris that is created for the hardware. We see a little bit of a resurgence in interest in this, and by '97 we get the Personal Arcade Volume 1 for the Microsoft Windows, which is kind of like a compilation piece, you know, just a little bit of something, and eventually a sequel to that, ColecoVision Hits Volume 1 was released in '98. And now, as I said before, the River West board owns the rights to the Coleco brand, and they release things here and there. But as we look at Mr. Do, we have to also, as I said, kind of remember that the Intellivision and Atari are a completely different beast in the sense that they have a longevity to them. People are still interested in Atari, the household name during the 80s. You know, it has a lot of a fanfare affiliated with it, such as, you know, the t-shirts that are sold now, and even the brand name being owned, you know, they still make games. It's not the same company, but...
Yeah, unfortunately, Coleco kind of... It was the best console out at the time, but it was forgotten.
And, you know, and that comes down
by
to...
history.
It doesn't have a lot of original games for it. You know, these are all arcade ports. We've mentioned that time and time again, but that's what we've seen. It was releasing the best of the arcade ports, but original titles also need to be there for that longevity, for that novelty, to be affiliated with a game system. And sadly, the ColecoVision did not have that.
Yeah, one thing that it does have that makes it stand out as a collector's piece, though, if anyone wants to go back and get any of these games, is they had a lot of original arcade games. And like we said, they went out and they scoured for these gems, things like Mr. Do that they pushed very hard, that I believe it was on the Atari 2600. We'll check on that, but this type of game was what they pushed hard. And they tried to grab these titles up. Someone like Sega, who was renowned in the arcades but hadn't been brought home yet, they were very savvy to go after these companies, and they picked the right ones to go after.
Absolutely.
As far as if you want to own the original hardware and the original games, there's a great selection to choose from. You're just not going to be able to own as many of the compilation packs and things that we have seen with the others, like the plug and plays that we've spoke about, and some of the other stuff that the other systems have come out with over the years.
And there are, like Ron said, there's not so many, but there are a couple Coleco plug and plays out there that you can come upon. But once again, with so many things being arcade ports, it's hard to get the licensings to that. So it's more what I've come upon is the Coleco sports handheld titles or plug and play titles. So in the end, it's a great system. It did what it needed to do at the time, but it had such a short lifespan. And those who remember it fondly. Those who had it,
the Coleco players that had them at the time loved their machines, especially if they had that 2600 module and some of these great arcade games, some of their good original games that they did have. There was a lot to like if you owned one. You certainly wouldn't be disappointed with the library.
No, not at all. Especially if you got sick of putting all those quarters into the game, or you just couldn't make it to the arcade, or as we saw, the arcade scene became a shady place. So staying at home, safe in your house, away from all the drugs and violence of American life, playing your Mr. Do. What else did you do than play Mr. Do in the safety of your home?
Absolutely.
That's the way I like to think of it. And I do like this game. Look, as you notice, Ray, playing this, there's a lot to like about Mr. Do.
Yeah, it's really fun. Plays very fluidly, and again on this joystick, with the range of motion you have, it moves very fluidly, except when you get stuck in a rock that's between two squares, like just happened.
Hey, when you're cornered, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
It happens.
But yeah, we look fondly back on this system. Unlike the Atari 5200, that was a stinker. The Atari 2600 is so storied, so I mean that's, no one can hardly forget that. The Intellivision was a great system. This really was the first major console war with interchangeable cartridges, and that's why we number it Console War 1, because of the interchangeable cartridges. And this was really the apex and pinnacle going into the crash that would basically clear the arena and pave the way for the next generation of systems, when we'd see Japan's companies make a huge rise in the home industry and see these old names fade out.
And it's interesting to say that Coleco was a one-shot wonder. Yeah, it was. The hardware was remade and reused, but not by the company itself, by other people who came along.
Yeah.
This is the one and only. We had the add-ons, but mostly what you see is what you get, and that's interesting. Whereas there were, 3 different ones in the generation of the Atari and the Intellivision, that was more of a straight shot too. But there were different brands that came out of that.
The crash at that point in the early 80s, there was a lot of companies that came along. RCA tried stuff. There was the Vectrix. There was so much stuff in Japan. Magnavox. There was a lot of companies involved, and the crash really just leveled the playing field. And most of them either went bankrupt or dropped out of video games and saw them as a fad that were no longer. And we don't go as much into the specifics of the crash into this one. Watch our Atari 2600, 5200 videos, and we get into a lot more in-depth discussion about the causes, because let's face it, Atari caused a lot of what caused the crash. Not that at no point have video games not been popular. It's just what video games were available is what affects, the marketplace.
And it's interesting to look back at the span of time these things lived through. The longevity of the systems. I won't go back into that, but the crash was pretty much a pretty intense 2-year period where everyone thought it was dead. Kids went back to reading for a small period of time, thank God. But
and beating each other up.
Yeah,
a time-honored tradition.
Oh yes, they do enjoy that. And they went back to playing sports, but thank God video games came back because we'd all be healthy if they didn't.
Yeah.
Healthy and probably happy, but I'm happy, not healthy. But let's kind of end our run here of Mr. Do, the clan member. Evidently, I don't know what the deal is with his outfit.
He is.
Still haven't figured that out. I'm not trying to be weird about that, but he does look like a clan member. That's all you can say. He was not doing the right thing, Mr. Do. But let's check out our last game, and we'll give our final impressions on the ColecoVision and all the consoles in our first segment, or our first console war, our true console wars.
Alright everybody, to close it out here for the ColecoVision, we're going to take a look at Venture by Exidy.
And this will also close out Console Wars of the Past Part 1, Series 1. As we've gone through the entire industry here, this is kind of the apex of the first generation.
Yeah, the earliest of the console generations. Now, there are a couple before this where like a few systems released, like the Magnavox Odyssey and like Home Pong, but those we don't count because they don't have interchangeable cartridges.
We're gonna call that Console War 0 actually when we get to that point.
Yeah, because it wasn't really a console war. It was just basically people getting their feet wet in the industry.
Yeah, they were trying to figure out what the hell these things exactly were. So there really wasn't a lot of marketing or understanding of what even they were selling. So this generation is the first time we see the interchangeable cartridges, and the creative people flex their muscles and come up with crazy things like this, with these weird egg-looking men chasing the smiley face guy with the bow and arrow that's trying to get the bowl of rice and escape from the room, or whatever's happening.
Whatever you want to make up.
That was the Goblin Room, by the way. Now this is a really fun game.
I'm being chased by sick Punisher symbols.
You try and get into each room and collect the fruit and shut it down, and then you'll get to the next section with more rooms. You can also play this 2-player, which is a lot of fun too, because you've got to work together and against each other, and you can block your friend off and try and get to the room first so that he's stuck on the other side of the board with all the little Punisher symbol men. Oh, and look at these. A little bit more trickery here. This is the wall room. And a very creative title. This isn't like a lot of other titles. Something a little bit different. Couple different screens, a couple of different ways to play.
Yeah, it's kind of like an adventure where you're collecting treasures, you're going through different areas. It kind of reminds me of that D&D game we played for Intellivision, only a little bit more snazzy as far as the graphics go. Ooh, tricky.
I like the arrows in them.
Yeah, he's just a smiley face that is made into a bow and arrow.
And then on this screen, you're just a little dot. This is the 2-head room, and each room has a different name that kind of represents what you're going to be fighting. There you see the 2-headed beasts, which after you shoot them, that arrow almost looks like one head.
Apparently you got one.
So you try and go through all these and collect all the treasures.
And it really does play like a a full-fledged adventure game, which is something you didn't see on the early consoles very much.
No, it was still something new. They were getting past the very, very early Atari games, and this is where we start seeing the rise of more creative titles that were trying crazy things, and
things that were just a little bit deeper.
A little bit deeper, that you didn't repeat the same screen over and over again. You know.
What the hell are those?
Those are dragons.
They look like cows with rainbow wings.
Well, again, these early systems, you interpret the graphics how you please. Especially since it was mostly marketed towards children. They use their imaginations anyway.
Yeah.
You know, decide what you want it to be.
Kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure thing.
So I've had a lot of fun playing the ColecoVision and checking this out. This is one that you want to, if you want to get into the collector's aspect, you want to own the original hardware and the original games. And
this is a system to do it on.
Yeah, this is a great collector's system. You know, you can pick up the Atari plug-and plays or find those games in collections on other systems. This is one that you truly, to experience and enjoy it, you need to have the original stuff. So
yeah,
that's about all I have. Let's Duck, what else do you have to say, and we'll close out this system.
Yeah, I'd like to say that we've also had a lot of fun doing these videos. This Console Wars series here has been rather fun for us.
Oh, I agree with you totally, and I think that this game is, I've never seen this before, so I'm really enjoying everything that's going on. We're going to see a little bit two-player action here as we close this out. But, you know, the Coleco is something that's alien to me until we've checked this out, and I've really enjoyed seeing what it had to offer. Once again, I've mentioned over and over again a lot of arcade stuff, but something like this that is an original title that was innovative at the time, it's really nice to see that. And I think Sam Walton at one point played this, Sam Walton being the founder of Walmart, as you see. And also, I like the fact that we're the Don't Worry Be Happy face, or whatever that was. I can't remember what the quote was. But anyhow, and I also like the fact that when you kill the monsters, whatever those are, the grape men, maybe they're California raisins for all I know, the arrow is hanging out of their dead body. It's nice to see corpses in a game. This would be rated mature back in the day. And the scream face, ghost face coming at you. And also, you know, the Coleco, it's a fun system to play because it has a lot of tight gameplay. Only qualm I have with it is the remote, but once again, we're trying new things. This is the beginning of it. You know, we haven't got this down pat, and once the NES controller came along, it was all innovation from there. Nintendo 64 controller, Dreamcast controller, a little bit of a setback. We saw our bad times, but we've also seen our good times. But definitely a lot of fun, and we hope that you've enjoyed watching these videos with us, or watching these videos as we go through. And there's more systems to come along the way, more console wars to be had, and so definitely check those out down the line. But I think we're gonna put the Coleco to rest here.
Yeah, it's time to turn this one in, and there are other systems for this generation. We may get to them, we may not. They're mostly kind of footnotes.
We're gonna do.
We're gonna try and do every system.
I can't wait till we get to the Tandy computer so we can hunt that wampus. It's good. Yeah. Texas Instruments. That's right. We're gonna hunt the wampus. I'm so excited about that. Almost as hyped as I was for Chuck Norris. I still am. Maybe that guy is Chuck Norris. That smiley face. It's got the same demeanor as Chuck. Always happy. Always out there with a bow and arrow. That Chuck. He's a hard-working fella.
Are you sure you're not thinking of Ted Nugent?
Ted Nugent too. They're the same person, are they?
No.
I thought they were. Oh well.
Alright, everybody.
But we've really enjoyed this, and we hope that you have too. So check out NugentGamers.com. Check out our other console wars of the past. Check out our Ray's retro reviews and many other things that we have available on the internet. Check out our reviews online. Check out our features at the website NugentGamers.com or shop at NugentGamers.com. So thank you again for watching.
Nice plugs.
Thank you.
So we're going to close this out, and I'll say, remember your history or you're doomed to repeat it.
And someday we will hunt that wampus.
Someday. The wampus is mine.
NewGenGamers.com.